Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Where do we start? How about at the beginning? I was a village girl. Typical except for the fact that I was a little prettier than average. Normal family, normal life. I wasn't that interested in a partner. But then again, I was still just a child. Romance wasn't really on the table. It was during my 14th birthday that my village was raided. Parents were killed, yada da da da. You get the idea? I was shocked at first, but got over it since I had more important matters. I was taken into an underground facility. I was blindfolded at the time, so I didn't know where, though now I do, and it was so far away from my village, I never bothered to return. They experimented on my body. I'm pretty sure they said something about there being millions of previous experiments as well. I forgot the number. But would you believe it if I told you those scientists, or whatever, didn't give me anesthetic? Ridiculous, right? I could have died from shock. Alas, I didn't. So there I was, the first success of their experiments. I became the first Snowmancer, a mage wielding the powers of science along with magic. I could theoretically make anything I want should I have both the mana and the understanding. And obviously, as the first success, they put some fail-safes into me, made it so that I couldn't revolt. Time passed. I continued to improve, and they never gave me a chance to learn something to help me leave their control. Then Mr. Hero came with his posse, raiding the lab, as he had the understanding of the underhanded deeds they have done. I was sent to intercept them as a defense, but Mr. Hero took pity on this missy. Disarming me, he proceeded to destroy the labs before he came back with a device to free me from control. I was grateful, yes, but I didn't feel a blind worship to Mr. Hero. I mean, sure, he saved me, but I didn't mind being killed, you know. He offered me a place into his party, and I accepted since I had nothing else to do. We leveled up together, grew stronger together. Well, I grew a little too strong. If you're wondering about leveling, then I'll tell you about what everyone calls the system. Though you probably already know. We receive it the moment we are born. Our attributes, our race, and our growth is recorded by the system. I did wonder where the system came from at one point of my life, but the more hung up you are about these details, the more restricted your life will become. So I just accepted it as a part of my life. So I was saying, I became too strong and the hero became wary of me. His own ego and hero complex couldn't stand someone stronger than him, so he recreated the device and tried to block my powers. The device only took a little of my power, making me just a little weaker than the hero. He killed me in the end, and I woke up again here, out in the snowfields with Mr. Wolves growling at me. And the rest you know. Well, new, since you are in fact the skull of the wolf I killed. A girl said as she looked at the decapitated head of a wolf amongst other corpses. Goodness, not even an hour here, and I'm already talking to a bloody head, she muttered, standing up. She had long black hair and azure eyes. Her skin was pale as it made her seem like a doll. Currently, she was wearing a silk-like white dress which fluttered gently. She was roughly 5'3", a little on the short side of height. But then again, she was a snow girl at this moment in time. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl. Evolution criteria yet to be met. Level, 3. Class, Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP, 190 out of 250. MP, 390 out of 500. STR, 10. VIT, 10. INT, 30. AGI, 20. DEX, 15. DEF, 10. Unassigned points, 15. ADULT human male average, 20 points. I'm a goddamn glass cannon, Shiro muttered, sitting on a corpse. The most important stats for a Snowmancer was no doubt INT, AGI, DX, and STR. INT/intelligence to provide her with the mana needed to formulate her equipment. AGI/agility so that she could dodge. DX/dexterity so she is able to handle the weapons with better proficiency and reload faster. STR/strength so she could actually lift the weapons. Though that's not to say VIT/vitality and DF/defense were not useful. They were, but the four aforementioned stats were the focus of her class, Snowmancer. However, with the addition of Snow Girl, she wasn't too sure how to distribute her stats. From what she knows, Snow Girls were a low-class monster ranking roughly in E ranks. The ranks go from the lowest E to the highest SSS. Although snow girls were the lowest rank of E, when they become a snow woman or Yukiana, they belong to the C to B ranks. This was one of the main reasons as to why people would kill snow girls when possible to avoid them evolving. Snow women were known for their magic as it allowed them to wield the power of ice. They were annoying foes since they would slow your reaction time down, or even downright cause you to fall into a coma due to the drop in temperature. From what she understands of the snow girl class, it would probably be most beneficial to juice up the INT stat due to the fact that they would give her both mana and magic damage. Since Snowmancer is already a max level SSS tier class, most of the skills are unusable due to my lack of mana and strength. Shiro muttered, looking at her class skills. Snow Girl. Available skills. Tier 1 Ice Magic. Passive Regeneration. Blessed by Ice. Snowmancer. Available skills. Dagger Creation. I'll put 10 points into AGI and 5 into INT first. I'll focus on the rest later since these two matter the most to me right now. Shiro muttered. Her dagger creation was redundant at this moment of time. She neither had the strength or mana to sustain the dagger or multiple daggers for that fact. Therefore, her best bet was to go with a snow girl's magic offense for now. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl, evolution criteria yet to be met. Level, 3. Class, Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP, 250 of 250. MP, 430 out of 600. STR, 10. VIT, 10. INT, 35. AGI, 30. Dex, 15. Def, 10. Unassigned points, 0. Due to the nature of the Snowmancer class, each of her skills needed an insane amount of mana to sustain since the class itself wasn't meant to be possessed by a low-level person. It's not a SSS class for nothing. Asterisk GRRR. Shiro paused when she felt her stomach rumble with hunger. Looking over at the wolf corpses, her mind started to drift. What do monsters eat in the first place? I don't think I've heard of snow girls being carnivores. Shiro thought. Mana stones maybe? She muttered as she reached out for the wolf's heart. Asterisk PSSHD PSSHD PSSHD. The sound of flesh and blood rang out while her hands searched around inside the wolf's body. Crushing the heart, she sighed since there were no mana stones to be found. Low-level monsters like these wolves had low chances of dropping mana stones to begin with. URG. I want food. Shiro complained whilst she searched the other bodies. Yet none of the corpses had any mana stones. HAA. Just my luck. Forget it. Collect? Shiro said as she collected her loot from the wolves. Mana stones had to be manually excavated because the moment she chooses to collect, the wolves' bodies would disintegrate into natural mana before scattering. This includes the mana stone, which would just be a waste. MN? Shiro paused when she smelled an enticing aroma. The source seemed to be the mana the wolves disintegrated into. Ah, I can eat this, Shiro exclaimed as she quickly sucked all the mana into her mouth, though she pouted a little since she had reacted a little too slow, causing her to waste the mana from the start. Rather than a meal, it was like she drank a soup, neither filling nor unfilling. She was satisfied for now. Turning back to her inventory, she had a look at the bounty. Wolf Fangs X4. Wolf Pelt X4. Wolf Eye X7. Broken Bones X10. Che, just a bunch of miscellaneous items. This Missy isn't a blacksmith nor a pharmacist. Give me a weapon or something, Shiro complained before she scrapped the items for some gold coins. Currency gained, $40. USD? Isn't the currency of Aria gold, silver, and copper? Shiro muttered, seeing the unfamiliar currency. Maybe I'm far into the future and the currency's changed? Shiro concluded. She did have another theory, which was world travel, but that was a bit ridiculous. Sitting down, Shiro hugged her legs as she finally decided to look at her surroundings. While it was a snow forest, Shiro knew she was in a dungeon, probably around the low to mid levels of the tower due to the low levels of the wolves. Location, she commanded. Snow Forest Dungeon 2F. Snow Forest? Doesn't that mean my magic would be weak to the dungeon boss? Shiro said, seeing the location. Even if she did spend all of her points to focus around her Nanomancer class, using a cold weapon such as a dagger would do minimal damage to the boss. Heck, unless she creates a gun, she wouldn't be able to use her Nanomancer class to clear dungeons. No, this Missy has just received a second chance. I refuse to be trapped in this dungeon. Wait, since I'm a snow girl, am I a monster spawned in the dungeon? She paused in realization. Can I even get out? Killing the boss means a dungeon reset. A dungeon reset means wiping all the monsters before restoring them again. Wiping all the monsters means also wiping me out. Arg, how do I leave? Shiro shouted in frustration. She had just been given her Sekko. No third chance if you included her escape from the facility. How could she let a dungeon lock her down? Though it seems like her shout had attracted unwanted attention. Or would it be wanted since she was needing food anyways? More wolves seemed to have appeared as Shiro turned towards them. Come here, Mr. Wolves. This Missy is just a harmless lady. She smiled softly, though the scent of blood on her just made the wolves bare their teeth. Why aren't they attacking yet? Shiro thought, since they seemed to be wary about something. She decided to turn around and run before tripping over nothing. I've tripped. How can I run away? She said, peeking over at the wolves who did nothing. Seriously? You did nothing? Shiro said, and she crossed her legs. She seemed to have gained an idea as she waved her hand around before laying on her back. Since you mutts don't want to attack, this Missy will sleep. I need some bodyguards anyways, she said, closing her eyes. MP 250/600. During her wait, she heard the sounds of flesh being ripped, causing her opened her eyes to 5 wolves being impaled by the traps she set down earlier. She wasn't afraid of them not working since she had already tested out the traps on the first batch of wolves. The only downside to this was how much MP it would use. It was a combination of spells which, when combined, expressed more potential than normal Tier 1 spells. The idea of combining spells was learnt during her time in the Heroes Party. Even though her Nanomancer class didn't need it, the mage had always said it was better to learn as much as you could in case of unexpected situations. Looking through the hearts of the 5 wolves, she found a single piece of mana stone the size of a pinky. Throwing the piece in her mouth, she chewed it as she found the taste similar to candy. Licking her lips, she couldn't help but complain at the low drop rate of the mana stone. Collect, she said once more, causing the wolves' bodies disintegrated. This time she made sure to drink every last drop of the mana. Scrapping the miscellaneous items once more, she gained $50. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl. Evolution criteria yet to be met. Level, 3-4. Class, Snow Girl, Nanomancer. HP, 250 of 250. MP, 430 out of 600. STR, 10. VIT, 10. INT, 35. AGI, 30. Dex, 15. Def, 10. Unassigned points, 5. Balance, $80. Each level up from 1 to 20 gave a person 5 points. The first 20 levels were more of a testing period, as it didn't really matter how one distributed their stats. The levels after 20 were where one would start to focus on their main attribute. It is also at level 20 when a person would get their first class up. At the class up, they would start to gain a certain amount of passive points per level, which shows you which area you want to place your focus in. Plugging the points into areas she knows she would have to place her attention on, Shiro nodded at her stats. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl. Evolution criteria yet to be met. Level, 4. Class, Snow Girl, Nanomancer. HP, 250 of 350. MP, 480/650. STR, 11. VIT, 11. INT, 36. AGI, 32. Dex, 15. Def, 10. Unassigned points, 0. Balance, $80. Dusting herself, she looked around for a temporary home, as camping in a dungeon wasn't uncommon. Therefore, the knowledge about how to camp safely was required to be learned. Due to a lack of resources, as well as the fact that she can't be bothered, Shiro decided to perch herself on a tree. Hugging the tallest branch, she looked for the obelisk. The obelisk was a panel which allowed you to either climb higher into the tower or lower. Her aim was to see if she can leave this dungeon, as it was disadvantageous for her class to combat the boss. Advertisements. Found it. Shiro smiled, seeing the tower towards her left. The tower seemed to be made from a matte black material, as the neon green lights made it stand out against the surroundings. When the light is red, it means you cannot use the obelisk. There are a few situations concerning the inability to use the obelisk, the most common being a boss fight. Unless the party is dead or the boss is dead, they wouldn't be able to use the obelisk. Due to the lighting getting darker, the monsters become more frenzied. Therefore, traveling to the obelisk right now would be a bad choice. Laying her back on the branch, Shiro looked up at the starless sky. Her peaceful aura made her seem profound right now, as if she was thinking about something deep, something that would make a person question the very meaning of life. I wonder if I can eat a wolf. Should I cook it? Though it seems like I'm living off mana instead. Or not. Monster meat can be collected and cooked. Though without sufficient storage, most would just choose to collect the drops, as the body would disintegrate. There are benefits to monster meat. Some grants temporary buffs to stats, whilst some were poisonous. There were some monster meat that even granted permanent increments to one stat, such as dragon flesh, which increases DF, STR, AGI, and VIT, which is why every part of a high-ranking monster was precious and should be harvested without failure, though raw flesh would be more harmful than beneficial. Naturally, humanoid monsters didn't escape this fate either. Snow woman flesh seemed to grant a significant increase to one's IND. That being said, female humanoid monsters like the Snow Woman were also used as high-quality stress relief for the high-level adventurers. Shiro wasn't unfamiliar, as she has seen humans mating with a humanoid monster weaker than them. The most common monsters to mate with were beings such as elves and female beast kin, who retain more human features than beast. But due to the uncomfortable terminology of monsters, they were more widely accepted as demi-humans or lesser humans. Looking at her arm, Shiro couldn't help but wonder if someone would try to eat her, both figuratively and literally. If they try to eat me, freezing their crotch and crushing them should do the trick. Shiro thought with slight humor, but understood the consequences of being caught when she is still weak. Setting a few traps around her, Shiro closed her eyes as she fell asleep. Standing atop the tree, Shiro looked around to find some easy prey for breakfast. Bear, level 10. Bear, level 8. Bear, level 15. Shiro muttered, seeing a few bears roam around. She wanted to look around for a few wolves, but it seems like they've moved territories as the bears invaded the local area. The main reason for migration would be due to a stronger monster spawning or a leader class monster expanding its territory. Monsters have classes within their ranks as well. These go from no class, rare class, elite class, general class, vice leader class, noble class, king class, and so on. The rest wasn't important for now. Shiro was currently a no class type monster. The class is set up in a way that a D rank, no class, could most likely defeat an E rank, general class, with relative ease. The higher the ranks, the more this disparity becomes. An S rank, no class, could clean its ass with a B ranked, king class monster. That being said, being awarded a class is a feat in itself. A class is only awarded when the monster undergoes a mutation after reaching the peak of their class. For example, if Shiro underwent a mutation of her Snow Girl class at the peak of level 20, she would gain a rare class or an elite class, though it would only happen if she doesn't class up. When she does, the class would then disappear. Rubbing her stomach, Shiro decided to hunt at least one bear to fill her stomach up before leaving. Walking around carefully, Shiro makes sure to single out a low-level bear. Bear LVL 6 empowered. Oh damn, there really is a leader class here on the second floor. Shiro muttered, seeing the status of the bear. Empowered meant that the monster was getting a buff from the leader class monster. A LVL 6 empowered bear would be roughly the same as a LVL 12 or 13 normal bear. Can I defeat him? Shiro thought, as she needed to be careful. She was just a harmless LVL 4 Snow Girl right now. Neither her mana nor stats allowed for her to be ballsy to challenge an empowered bear. Not that she has any balls to begin with. They belong to males. No, this Missy is outta here, she thought, and decided to retreat. Maybe if she was a LVL-10 snow girl, she may stand a chance. Ignoring her hunger, she treaded carefully to not draw the aggression/aggro of the monsters whilst moving towards the obelisk. Though the situation made her want to cry, the frequency of high-level empowered bears became more common the closer she went, meaning the leader-class bear took refuge near the obelisk. Can I not get a break? Shiro thought in her mind as she had to keep quiet, or else her life would be forfeited. Retracing her steps, she returned to the outer circle of the bear territory. If I kill a few wolves and level up, I should be able to sneak past, or at least survive long enough to use the obelisk. Shiro thought, making her target for now. Reach level 10 and kill a few bears. ####. It took her 3 days to level up to LVL-10, as not only did the bear's territory increase causing her to slow down, but the number of wolves she needed to kill to level up once increased as well. However, she had to bear it for the sake of survival. But her hard work paid off as she felt slightly confident to fight against the lowest level empowered bear. Name: Shiro. Race: Snow Girl. Evolution criteria yet to be met. Level: 4-10. Class: Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP: 550 of 550. MP: 1200 of 1200. STR: 11-15. VIT: 11-20. INT: 36-45. AGI: 32-40. Dex: 15. Def: 10. Unassigned points: 0. Balance: $2,300. There was another benefit to killing the wolves to reach LVL-10. She had managed to gain a few item drops from the wolves, though some were downright useless. A person has 6 main equipment slots: head, shoulders, chest, arms, pants, and feet. In addition of the 6 main slots, there are a few minor slots. To name a few would be earring, rings, necklace, crown, bracelets, and so on. Whilst there wasn't a limit to how many accessories one can have, the more accessories a person wears, the faster they break. This was due to the fact that the mana gathered around the accessories would repel one another. With too many, the mana damaging each accessory increases, causing them to break faster. The best combination so far would be 2 earrings/2 rings, a necklace, and 2 bracelets. Shiro's current equipment was helmet: none. Shoulder: wolf light guards. Wolf light guards, white, LVL-5. +5 int. Chest: wolf light armor. Wolf light armor, white, LVL-5. +5 int. +2 def. Arms: none. Pants: wolf light pants. Wolf light pants, white, LVL-5. +10 AGI. Feet: none. She only chose these pieces since the others would hinder her speed too much. That and also most of them didn't suit her since they were either heavy pieces of armor or the stat bonuses brought more negative than positives. One being the wolf heavy guard. It was a piece of green equipment, but the -10 SPD and the +10 def would destroy her current balancing. It was more effective for a tanker, but not for her. As for the equipment grade colors, they go from white dash, green dash, blue dash, purple dash, orange dash, red dash, black dash, rainbow. In her loadout, she was also missing a few pieces of equipment since she didn't receive them. Wolves were more of a low-level grind mob that helped low-level people to get stronger. No other purposes. Therefore, getting a few drops from them were pretty lucky. Bears, on the other hand, Shiro smiled thinking about the potential drops. Her current stats with the boost of her equipment was name: Shiro. Race: Snow Girl. Evolution criteria yet to be met. Level: 10. Class: Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP: 550 of 550. MP: 1700, 1200 plus 500. STR: 15. VIT: 20. INT: 45 plus 10. AGI: 40 plus 10. Dex: 15. Def: 10 plus 2. Unassigned points: 0. Balance: $2,300 US equals equipment bonus. The equipment wasn't visible since it had three options: visible, energy, hidden. Visible was as it says, visible. Energy means having a faint energy outline of the equipment over what you're already wearing. Hidden means not viewable at all. A homeless person could be wearing a full set of purple equipment for all you know. As for weapons, she didn't get lucky enough to procure a weapon. But it wasn't too bad since she probably wouldn't be able to make use of it in the first place. Stalking her prey, Shiro waited for the LVL-5 bear to be far enough away from the rest before striking. Her goal was simple: strike the weak point. Unfortunately, the weak point was the anus. The bear seemed to sense danger as it wanted to turn around and fight the danger. However, the spear was already traveling up its ass. Shiro made sure to run around the bear before making a block of ice to stop the bear's screams from reaching the other monsters. "Hush, Mr. Bear. Just a little anal probe," Shiro shouted quietly as she used ice to trap the bear down. The bear thrashed around wildly, causing the ice to show signs of breaking. "Come on, just a little further," Shiro said as she hopped behind the bear and continued to push the spear. The bear seemed to have gained a sudden boost, clenching its anus and snapped the ice spear in half. *CKK. The ice broke as well, freeing the bear. Turning around, it glared at her with bloodshot eyes. Bear LVL-5. Empowered plus enraged? I like to say that your anus muscles are very healthy, Shiro smiled as it served to make the bear angrier. It opened its mouth to scream, but Shiro made another spear and stabbed it through the mouth, pushing it down the throat. Since the first spear still had a piece inside the bear's anus, Shiro grinned before clasping her hands together. Her MP dropped quickly as the two spears joined together, skewering the bear to death. Yikes, killed through penetration of both holes even though you're a male. You have my condolences? Shiro prayed even though she had a grin on her face. Name: Shiro. Race: Snow Girl. Evolution criteria yet to be met. Level: 10-11. Class: Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP: 550 of 550. MP: 480 of 1700. STR: 17. VIT: 20. INT: 47 plus 10. AGI: 40 plus 10. Dex: 16. Def: 10 plus 2. Unassigned points: 5-0. STR plus 2, INT plus 2, Dex plus 1. Balance: $2,300. Making sure the bear was dead, Shiro dug her hands into its heart as she pulled out a mana stone the size of her thumb. A little bigger than the wolves, I guess. But then again, it's still just a level 5 bear, Shiro said, chewing the stone. Once again, the stone tasted like candy, but this time it had a fruitier taste than the wolf mana stone. Bear paws X2. Bear pelt X3. Bear eyes X1. Bear heavy arm guards, green. Bear claw gauntlets, green. Wow, 2 green drops straight away. Shiro smiled whilst she drank all of the mana from the corpse. Although she couldn't use the equipment, from what she could tell, she could still recycle it using her Snowmancer class. It would make it so that the equipment she crafts using nanobots later would be more powerful than what it would be without recycling some trash equipment. With the Snowmancer class, she was a walking recycling machine. Leaving the area quickly, Shiro sat on the tree and watched the 3 newly arrived bears look around the area where their comrade fell. With my current stats, I would probably put up a decent fight with a top-tier E-rank adventurer, Shiro thought, since her highest stat was halfway to the 3 digits. To become a D-rank adventurer, one of the requirements was to have a 3-digit stat in any given area. Naturally, with a D-rank adventurer being 5 times more powerful than average men, could only mean those higher up in the ranks were monster amongst men. They could sneeze and accidentally kill you. While she was almost 3 times as strong as average men, Shiro knew any random D-rank adventurer could swat her to death. Standing up, Shiro smiled seeing the 3 bears leave. Targeting another low-level bear, Shiro jumped across the trees as she would occasionally swing on a branch to increase her distance traveled. Since she is a snow girl, she also had the choice of floating, but that would take quite a bit of MP per second and not worth it in this moment of time. Bear LVL7. Empowered. Silently forming another spear, Shiro grinned before she took aim towards the anus of the bear. Mana gathered in her palms as the spear shot towards the ass. However, luck was not on her side since the bear stood up in this moment, resulting in the spear hitting the hide and shattering. The bear's head swiveled towards her location, causing Shiro to pause, feeling the anger rising in the bear. "I'm sorry." Shiro apologized with a twitching smile. This fight could have been much easier if the bear didn't suddenly stand up. Rayanin. The bear roared, alerting the nearby bears as Shiro quickly turned and ran with all her might. "Oh hell no," she thought in her head. She didn't dare to look back. The previous fight seemed easy as she had made sure to target the weak points of the anus and the mouth. But if she aimed for the hide, then not only would it deal minimal damage, it would also incur the bear's wrath. But that's not to say that probing the bear wouldn't. Quickly thinking up a solution, Shiro dashed towards the wolves with 4 bears chasing behind her. She didn't need to see their tag to realize they were enraged. Just their roars gave her a hint. It didn't take long for Shiro to reach the wolves since she understood their pattern over the course of the few days she took to hunt them down. Allowing the wolves and the bears to fight, Shiro escaped. The sounds of combat and roars rang out behind her as she sighed in relief. "Sorry, Mr. Wolf, but this miss needs her life more than you," she thought, leaving the area quickly. After making sure she was far away from the sounds of combat, she targeted another lone bear. Bear LVL6 Empowered. This time, she took extra care to remember the bear's movements as she stabbed it in the anus without any mistakes. Instead of connecting 2 spears together, she opted to make the spear explode into shards which then expanded to kill the bear. It proved to be a better method since not only did this method help her level up a few times, the bears wouldn't be able to endanger her as much. In a single day of hunting empowered bears continuously, she managed to reach LVL 16. Name: Shiro. Race: Snow Girl. Evolution criteria yet to be met. Level: 16. Class: Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP: 1200 of 1200. MP: 1950/1950. STR: 27 plus 3. Vid: 25 plus 8. Int: 53 plus 10. AGI: 45 plus 10. Dex: 16. Def: 10 plus 4. Unassigned points: 0. Balance: 4,200 US. Equipment: Helmet: Empowered Bear Helmet. Empowered Bear Helmet, green, LVL 10. Plus 3 STR. Plus 3 Vit. Shoulder: Wolf Light Guards. Wolf Light Guards, white, LVL 5. Plus 5 Int. Chest: Wolf Light Armor. Wolf Light Armor, white, LVL 5. Plus 5 Int. Plus 2 Def. Arms: Empowered Bear Paw Guard. Empowered Bear Paw Guard, green, LVL 10. Plus 2 Def. Plus 5 Vit. Legs: Wolf Light Pants. Wolf Light Pants, white, LVL 5. Plus 10 AGI. Feet: none. Her task today was to scout out the leader class bear. If the situation is good, she would try to defeat it, or rather try to escape as fast as possible. If it is bad, she'll still escape as fast as possible. So many high-level bears. Shiro thought, seeing the bears in the area. Bear LVL 20. Empowered. Bear LVL 18. Empowered. Bear LVL 20. Empowered. Bear LVL 20. Empowered. Most of the bears were close to or at LVL 20. She had to make sure that she doesn't draw their ire before she reached the obelisk. The reason as to why she needed to reach the obelisk today was due to the fact that the bears have almost conquered the entire floor. Staying longer wouldn't be advised. Zipping through the trees, Shiro made sure to try to be as quiet as possible. It was only after a few hours did she finally reach the edge of the forest. The obelisk stood in front of her, but so was the bear. Ice Elemental Bear LVL 20, Leader Class, Empowered. It only made it worse that it was an Ice Elemental Bear. Her Tier 1 ice magic can't even be used to clean its ass. The leader class title will probably give it some ice resistance, not to mention the fact that it is an ice elemental bear. Shiro thought while she looked at its hulking figure. Standing at 3 meters, the bear had void black fur with ice protruding out of its spine. The bear's eyes glowed blue as he looked at his guards. He had 5 LVL-20 bears around him and reached out for one of them. Asterisk bang. Hitting one of the bears, the leader class bear threw the corpse into his mouth as he began to chew. Did he just one-shot a LVL-20 empowered bear? Shiro thought. Her eyes widened in shock. Sure, she may have heard how strong a leader class was, but seeing one was another matter in itself. I will definitely die if I try to face it with my ice magic. I need to leave using the obelisk. Shiro thought with a frown. Staying still in her place, she surveyed the bear's movements to check when it was most optimal for her to reach the obelisk. It took a few hours of observation, but she came to the conclusion that every moment was the most optimal as the goddamn bear didn't move a single bit. She tried to draw its attention by throwing rocks to create noise in another location, but the bear sent his underlings instead. Throwing the rock once more, Shiro decided to make a run for it when the bear had the least amount of company. Now, she thought, dashing in a beeline towards the obelisk. Her heart was pounding with nervousness since the leader class locked onto her almost instantly. Quickly making a block of ice to substitute as a shield, Shiro hoped it would block the bear's paw long enough for her to avoid it. The ice was nothing more than air as the paw easily shattered it. Jumping forwards, Shiro protected her head with her arms while she tried to roll. Asterisk boom. The ground shook since the paw missed her narrowly. However, it still sent her flying forwards, causing her to roll heavily across the ground. HP 680/1200. URG. Goddamn bear. Shiro muttered, feeling pain all over her body. The bear didn't give her a chance to recuperate since a second paw was already heading towards her. Thankfully, the force of the first attack sent her next to the obelisk. Obelisk teleportation. 3F, 2F, 1F. Immediately tapping 1F, Shiro saw her vision shift as she was teleported to the edge of a forest. Sighing in relief, Shiro laid back waiting for her HP to regenerate. When a person used the obelisk, it wouldn't teleport them to another obelisk. Rather, it teleported them to the edge of the floor, and she would need to make their way to the obelisk once more. Lucky for her, this meant that she was closer to the entrance of the dungeon. Taking a few pieces of mana stones she kept in her inventory for rations, Shiro chewed on them whilst she thought about the previous fight. His STR was higher than I thought. To shatter a Tier 1 ice block, like it was air, means his STR is around the 200s or higher. A LVL-20, leader class, bear, should be roughly a LVL-30 to LVL-40. No class, bear monster. Shiro thought when she realized that this meant the ice elemental bear was akin to a low/mid-level D-rank monster. No wonder he took half my HP with a missed attack. She thought in relief that the paw missed. If it hit, it would definitely kill her in one swat. This miss has been hit by a variety of attacks. I refuse to be killed like a fly. Shiro thought in her mind as she stood up. She wanted to leave the dungeon as soon as possible. The gate of a dungeon was as it says. A giant gate. It wasn't too hard to spot since a giant set of doors could be seen not too far from her. Walking towards the door, Shiro could see the engravings on the door itself. Bears, wolves, ice elementals. Just a typical E-rank dungeon, huh? She muttered as the gates of a dungeon would give people some idea of what was inside the dungeon itself. Seeing movement on the doors, Shiro became vigilant as she quickly hid behind some trees and looked at the gate opening with narrowed eyes. A party of 5 appeared, and they seemed to be novices since their equipment was rather subpar. The aura they emitted gave Shiro no danger either, as she understands she could probably kill them easily in a 1v1. Asterisk CRRR. The doors slowly closed when the party of 5 entered. They were chatting without care as if they were having a picnic. Her attention was drawn away when she saw movement on the door. The initial carvings and images shifted as they morphed, and the overall picture changed. Dungeon mutation. There was a low chance of a dungeon mutation happening since it would change the dungeon's fundamentals. Out of 100 dungeons, there would probably be 1 or 2 that would mutate. Right now, the dungeon was changing as an orange light appeared in the center of the forest. Dungeon mutation occurred. Current location, Fire Elementals Charred Forest 1F. Rank E+/D-. Fire Elementals? Lucky for me. Shiro thought with a smile. This meant her ice would actually do something. She could probably grind for a few levels and maybe challenge the ice elemental bear. Or rather a fire elemental bear due to the mutation. One question remained in her mind though. Why wasn't I affected? She thought. Could it be that I'm technically not a part of this dungeon? So if they beat the dungeon and the dungeon wipe occurs, I should be safe from it. Let's not gamble for now. She thought as her hypothesis could be wrong and erase her ass from the face of this dungeon. The party of 5 seemed to be panicking too since they hit the door a few times, but it refused to budge. Sneaking closer to them, Shiro wanted to see if she could gather some information about where she was and which time period. Peeking her head out slightly, she exposed her 2 azure eyes as she glanced over. The scout seemed to have noticed something since he shot an arrow towards where she was. Ah! Shiro was surprised at how they shot without warning. Quickly ducking, she looked at the arrow embedded into the tree. How rude, she thought, turning back to the group. Xian Feng, LVL 15, Swordsman. Jean, LVL 14, Archer. Claire, LVL 15, Priest. Bonnie, LVL 14, Assassin. Trevor, LVL 18, Guardian. They took their positions with Trevor at the front, Xian Feng and Bonnie behind him. Jean and Claire were situated at the back. Trevor slammed his shield down as he shouted at her. Taunt failed. Huh? Aya, you 5 want to kill this miss? Shiro shouted, jumping back to avoid another arrow. Sliding slightly on the ground, she looked up to see the Guardian charging towards her with his shield. Conjuring up a block of ice, she blocked the charge, causing the Guardian to be stunned for a moment. Rolling to her side, she avoided the stab of the assassin. Her instincts were kicking in since she wasn't the strongest person in her previous life for nothing. Mid-roll, she aimed her palm as a Tier 1 ice bullet shot towards the assassin. The assassin was hit, but her body flashed with a white light healing her up. Tisk! Shiro clicked her tongue before she retreated back into the forest. A group fight was disadvantageous for her right now. They were weaker than her if she fought them one-on-one, but this was currently a 5v1. She landed on a branch and quickly stabilized herself. Looking at the 5 who were vigilant against her, an idea entered her mind as she gave them a provocative sneer. ####. This was supposed to be our graduation exam. We had to conquer the E-ranked dungeon before we leave. We were at the top of the class, so the teachers were confident in us beating the dungeon. Check your mini-maps. We don't want to be ambushed near the entrance. I called out to my longtime friends. I know. Jean, our scout, replied. Our group talked for a little while, but we froze when we felt the mana jump. Feng, this dungeon is mutating. Claire shouted out whilst me, and Trevor tried to open the door but failed. We'll have to wait for the teachers to send in D-rank members or hire to pry this door open, I said with a frown. The situation wasn't looking too great, but we could survive as long as we hold our ground and wait for rescue. Some would try to clear the dungeon, but we knew better. Mutated dungeons meant the monsters became stronger, so it would be suicidal to try to proceed without ample preparation. Only when there were no other options would a party try clear one unprepared. Jean seemed to have picked up a monster because he shot towards the location where the monster was. Ah! We heard a soft voice cry out in surprise as we became vigilant. Shiro, LVL 16, Snow Girl. HP, 1200. MP, 1950 of 1950. A named monster. There were instances where a monster would be named. Not only would they give more loot, the EXP you would get for killing one increased by a lot as well. Even if she wasn't named, we would have needed to kill her anyways since she could go get reinforcements which would endanger our safety. We looked at each other before we entered a formation the school taught us. Trevor used taunting shout, but the Snow Girl seemed to be unaffected. Jean launched another arrow to see if he could hit her. Dodging backwards, she opened her mouth as she started to talk, but all we heard were wordless echoes. Phone. I think she might be an intelligent monster, Trevor said with a frown. I think so as well, I replied. This would make the fight harder because she could very well lure us into a trap. Trevor charged towards her with shield bash in hopes of stunning her. However, what he hit was a block of ice as Bonnie quickly tried to stab her so Trevor would be safe. The snow girl rolled on her side before firing an ice bullet at Bonnie. Claire didn't dawdle as she quickly healed Bonnie up. Jesus, it's like fighting an instructor, Bonnie said with a frown whilst we looked at the snow girl standing on the branch. Isn't a snow girl supposed to be a weak E-rank monster? Trevor said, keeping his guard up. But this one is a named monster. We can't judge named monsters with the same logic, I replied as my friends nodded gravely. The snow girl seemed to pause for a moment before flashing a provocative sneer. She turned around and disappeared into the forest, leaving us here. Don't follow. Even if she does bring reinforcements, we need to wait for the teachers, I said as my friends agreed. Chasing after her would bring us more danger. ####. They didn't follow? Shiro muttered, seeing the five not following her. And here I thought they were greenhorns. Seems like they know the more important basics, she said, sitting down on the branch. Current goals. Number 1, reach LVL 20. Number 2, leave this dungeon, Shiro muttered while a flaming fox jumped at her. She waved her hand as a spear of ice stabbed the fox through the mouth, killing it instantly. Since it was a fire attribute monster, it had a weakness towards ice and water, resulting in an instant kill. Weak, Shiro said, kicking her legs back and forth. Her initial goal was to lure the party in the forest so she could ambush them and capture them one by one. Now that was out of the window. She'll have to find out about her surroundings when she leaves the dungeon. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl. Evolution criteria yet to be met. Level, 16-18. Class, Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP, 1900 of 1900. MP, 3550/3550. STR, 32. Vid, 27, plus 15. Int, 55, plus 40. AGI, 50, plus 15. Dex, 17. Def, 10, plus 9. Unassigned points, 0. Balance, $9,200. Equipment, tap to display. This was her stats after a day and a half of hard work. While the mutation brought higher-level fire-based monsters, they were still under-level for Shiro. Continuing to hunt these mobs would take forever to level up again, she muttered. She was currently chewing a few mana stones as the fire-attributed ones tasted like strawberry. Making her way to the obelisk, she saw the Guardian. Fire Spirit Golem, LVL 15, Elite Class. The Fire Spirit Golem stood at roughly 2.5 meters tall. Made from dark brown rock, it had fire flaring out from every crack on its body. Elite Class? Should be a challenge, Shiro said while she chewed on the stones. Spreading her palms, electricity and metallic effects sparked as they started to twine together. My mana has reached enough for me to make use of my dagger creation. Though not as intended, it should work like a charm on you, Shiro said with a grin. 2 daggers formed in both her hands as they had neon blue veins traveling down the blade. The daggers took 1000 MP each, which would be fine if she was higher level. But right now, each dagger was just a little under a third of her total MP. Nano Crafted Ice Dagger, Blue, LVL 18. Plus 10 piercing. Plus 10 sharpness. Plus 10 ice element. Durability, until stored MP runs out. MP, 1000. Asterisk Reahaha. The golem cried out, causing molten rocks to separate from its back and shoot towards her. Sidestepping some of the rocks, Shiro frowned, seeing her HP drop a little due to the slight AoE, area of effect. HP, 1750/1900. As the 2 large boulders shot towards her, Shiro twirled both daggers in her hands before throwing them towards the rocks. When the daggers hit the rocks, Shiro clenched her fist as ice started to spread outwards from the daggers. During her time hunting the fire element monsters back on the first floor, she had managed to combine both classes together in some instances such as now. When crafting the dagger, Shiro inserted Tier 1 magic in the center, which made the dagger akin to a grenade that can be detonated at any moment she wants. The sudden contrast of temperature created through her ice caused the boulders to explode due to thermal shock. As the boulders exploded, Shiro flexed her fingers, causing the daggers to fly back into her hands as if they were magnetized. Running towards the golem with narrowed eyes, she threw one of her daggers at the face. Seemingly understanding the danger the daggers possess, the golem made a small rock to counter the dagger. Shiro took its reaction into account as her second dagger shot towards the leg. Stabbing the leg of the golem, Shiro didn't combust the dagger but instead used it as a foothold. Jumping up, she grabbed the first dagger, then twisted her body before she stabbed it into the golem's chest. Combusting both daggers, the force sent the golem stumbling backwards as Shiro landed lightly. She quickly scanned her own HP and MP to see how they were holding up. HP 1450/1900, MP 1150/3550. Shiro frowned at the damage she took to her HP since just being near fire caused her HP to drop a little every second. It was one of the negatives due to her being a snow girl. Seeing the golem stand once again, albeit with visible damage on its body, Shiro couldn't help but lament the fact that she can't see its HP. Flicking her wrist, both daggers reappeared in her hands. MP 490/1000, MP 410/1000. She sighed slightly at the remaining MP in each of her daggers, but decided to make do for now. The golem stood up tall as it brought its arms above its head. Slamming both arms down, Shiro quickly jumped upwards to avoid the tremors as she threw the daggers at the golem's arm joints. The golem's arms solidified, causing the daggers to bounce off. Opening its mouth, fire elements surged towards it, and a ball of fire was being created. "All right, a breath attack," Shiro said as she remembered most elemental type, elite class. Her higher monsters were capable of breathing out a breath of their respective elements. Quickly utilizing the float passive of Snow Girls, she avoided the fire breath. Her breathing fluctuated due to her being so close to the fire. Conjuring up some icy mist to cool her down, Shiro panted while she landed hard on the ground. HP 650/1900, MP 700/3550. Tisk. She clicked her tongue as she stood up. The golem clamped its mouth shut whilst it glared at her. She walked towards the golem before slowly increasing her speed into a full-on sprint. With her AGI reaching 65 points, she was 3 times as fast as an average human adult. The daggers unhinged themselves as Shiro caught them in midair. Turning her body without slowing down a single bit, she threw the daggers back into the face of the golem with increased momentum. Making 3 ice spears, she threw 2 which locked down on the golem's legs, whilst the last one hit the cranium. The force caused the golem to open its mouth as the 2 daggers entered inside. "Goodbye," Shiro grinned as she detonated the daggers. This time she made sure the daggers would use every last drop of MP stored inside them to give the golem a devastating blow. Boom. The explosion of ice shot into the air, causing Shiro to whistle at the impact. The fire that came from the golem died down, signaling her about the golem's death. "Hee, loot, loot my loot," she sung lightly as she jogged towards the body of the golem. Rummaging through the rocks, she found the mana stone the size of 2 fingers. Lifting the stone above her face, she peered through the stone as it seemed like the stone held a ball of fire inside. Unable to contain her grin, she threw the stone into her mouth and smiled blissfully at the taste. The stone had a sweet outer shell with the taste of oranges. Once you get past the outer shell, a jelly-like inner area welcomed her as a burst of flavor exploded in her mouth. Giggling slightly, Shiro enjoyed the mana stone slowly whilst she collected her bounty. Fire Giant's Shield, green, LVL 15. Fire Spirit's Ring, blue, LVL 15. Fire Giant's Greaves, green, LVL 15. Fire Giant's Guard, green, LVL 15. Fire Giant's Titanus Cleaver, blue, LVL 15. Fire Source Stone X10. Fire Stone Dust X42. Fire Giant Essence X1. Red Gem X3. 2,000 US dollars. Oh my, 3 green drops and 2 blue drops. You are one fat sheep, big guy, Shiro said, looking at where the golem once stood. She didn't need the shield, so she recycled that. Inspecting the other pieces, she couldn't help but grin when she saw the ring. Fire Spirit's Ring, blue, LVL 15, ring. Plus 20 int. Plus 10 def. Skill, Fire Spirit Blessing. Fire Spirit Blessing, activate to receive a 20% increase to magic damage and 20% fire damage. Duration, 20 seconds. Cooldown 2 minutes. Fire Giant's Greaves, green, LVL 15, legs. Plus 15 def. Plus 10 STR. Minus 15 AGI. Fire Giant's Guard, green, LVL 15, arms. Plus 10 STR. Plus 5 dex. Minus 5 AGI. Fire Giant's Titanus Cleaver, blue, LVL 15, greatsword. Requirements, 40 STR. Plus 20 sharpness. Plus 15 fire element. Plus 5 ignore defense. Plus 5 heavy damage. Minus 20 AGI. Minus 5 attack speed. Skill, Fire Giant Empowerment. Fire Giant Empowerment, plus 100% strength, plus 50% damage, minus 80% speed. Duration, 1 minute. Cooldown 5 minutes. Everything apart from the ring is pretty much unusable for me, Shiro muttered, recycling everything except for the ring and greatsword since the sword itself may have some uses later. She equipped the ring and checked her stats. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl, evolution criteria yet to be met. Level, 18-19. Class, Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP, 650/2050. MP, 300 for 4550. STR, 32. VIT, 27-30, plus 15. INT, 55, plus 60. AGI, 50, plus 15. Dex, 17-19. Def, 10, plus 19. Unassigned points, 5-0. Balance, 11,200 US dollars. Equipment, tap to display. One more level, and then I'll reach LVL 20. I wonder what's the class up after Snow Girl, she muttered as she reached out for the obelisk. Teleporting back to the second floor, what was a snow forest now became a scenery of fire and burnt trees. I'm back, miss me? Shiro called out with a smile. There was a bear in front of her, and it was a LVL 7 empowered fire bear. Sending out a single ice spear, she killed the bear easily. ####. Collecting the corpse of another bear, Shiro stretched her body since she had finally reached the first minor turning point. LVL 20. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl, evolution criteria yet to be met. Level, 20. Class, Snow Girl, plus, Snowmancer. HP, 2550/2550. MP, 4000/4550. STR, 32-35. VIT, 30, plus 25. INT, 55, plus 60. AGI, 50, plus 15. Dex, 19-21. Def, 10, plus 27. Unassigned points, 5-0. Balance, 14,600 US dollars. Equipment, helmet, Fire Spirit Crown. Fire Spirit Crown, green, LVL 10. Plus 10 int. Shoulder, Fire Spirit Guards. Fire Spirit Guards, green, LVL 10. Plus 10 int. Plus 5 def. Chest, Fire Spirit Dress. Fire Spirit Dress, green, LVL 15. Plus 20 int. Plus 10 vit. Arms, Empowered Flame Bear Paw Guard. Empowered Flame Bear Paw Guard, green, LVL 15. Plus 10 def. Plus 15 vit. Legs not applicable. Feet, Fire Spirit Boots. Fire Spirit Boots, green, LVL 10. Plus 15 AGI. Plus 5 int. Ring Fire Spirits Ring. Fire Spirits Ring, blue, LVL 15. Plus 20 int. Plus 10 def. Skill, Fire Spirit Blessing. Fire Spirit Blessing, activate to receive a 20% increase to magic damage and 20% fire damage. Duration, 20 seconds. Cooldown 2 minutes. Pressing the plus next to her Snow Girl class, she saw the current branches that were open to her. Snow Girl. Class up choices. A. Ice Girl. B. Snow Girl. C. Snow Spirit. When a class has a next to it, it means having the same class but with added benefits. It is something similar to a prestige. The more you stay on the same class, the more benefits you get. The highest amount of S you can get on a class is 5S. With more S, the subsequent class ups would also increase in the potential one would have. A snow woman derived from a 5 snow girl would be much more powerful than a normal snow woman. Naturally, the class up conditions for getting a would get harder the more S you choose. Therefore, not many would persist until 5S as the conditions may be downright suicidal. Yet some would still choose this option due to the fact that you wouldn't lose any of the skills you have already learned, and instead get more skills added onto your arsenal. An example of this would be advancing from a swordsman to a shield knight. You would lose some of your sword skills, but in return gain a set of skills to better utilize your sword and shield together. However, if they chose to class up to a swordsman, their already existing skills would gain a boost to their power. Ice Girl. Further attuning yourself to the power of ice, you gain a substantial boost to all ice-related skills. Plus 100% ice damage. Plus 75% fire vulnerability. Bonus skills. Tier 2 ice magic, Heart of Ice, ice movement. Snow Girl. Remaining on the Snow Girl class, you increase your fundamental skills. Plus 50% ice damage. Minus 25% fire vulnerability. Bonus skills. Tier 2 ice magic, Snow Magic skill line, Faded Snow movement, Cold Aura, Snow Spirit. You chose to forsake your physical form as you target the spiritual. Plus physical damage nullification. Plus 100% weakness to holy magic / fire magic / soul magic / daylight. Bonus skills. Tier 1 soul magic, Tier 2 ice magic, Cold Aura, passive flight, race change, Snow Girl - Spirit. Shiro immediately struck Snow Spirit off her choice of class up paths. She wanted to keep her physical body okay. She didn't want to be evaporated the moment she left the dungeon. This left only 2 choices, Ice Girl and Snow Girl. Ice Girl would give her more ice magic damage but would also increase her weaknesses. However, if she chose to class up into a Snow Girl, the class up requirements would also increase. Heh, more fun for me. Shiro chuckled as she tapped Snow Girl. The other options disappeared as it locked on to the class. Snow Girl. Class up requirements. Conquer E rank dungeon solo. D rank mana stone. Heavy checkmark 100 int. Snow Girl. Class up requirements. Conquer E rank dungeon solo. D rank mana stone. Heavy checkmark 100 int. Conquer E rank dungeon solo? So that confirms my hypothesis. I won't die if the dungeon resets, Shiro said with a small smile after reading the requirements. Walking calmly towards the obelisk, Shiro killed any bears that tried to attack her. There was a small benefit to trying to level up even though she reached LVL 20. She'll still get points per level, but it wouldn't be as much compared to the point bonus after class up. Right now, she'll get 5 points per pseudo level up, but if she leveled up after class up, she'll get 20 points instead. Each level after class up is equivalent to 4 pseudo level ups. However, the EXP needed to level up would still be the same. Therefore, it is always advised for people to aim for class up. A consequence of not classing up would be needing several times the amount of EXP compared to others when leveling up from 21 to 22. This is due to the fact that the person would have accumulated several pseudo levels, thus increasing the amount of EXP needed. As if understanding the danger Shiro possessed, the bears started to back away while she walked calmly towards the leader class, without any hindrances. "Hey there, big guy. Remember me?" Shiro said, looking at the hulking 3-meter bear in front of her. Fire Spirit infused bear LVL 20-liter class, empowered. The bear had experienced quite a few changes of his own, as he had little to no fat on his body. His muscles were chiseled, which served to make him more menacing. What was ice on his back now became a column of fire raging to the beat of his heart. His eyes glowed a menacing red as he focused on the tiny snow girl who stood in front of him. "Why you've been juicing up lately, huh? I can barely see a scrap of fat on you," Shiro said, holding her chin. The bear swiped his right paw towards her as Shiro smiled. Jumping up, she landed on the top of the paw softly. Running up the arm of the bear, Shiro created a dagger in her hands. MP 3550/4550. Reaching near the head of the bear, Shiro's eyes became cold as she plunged the dagger towards the eye. The bear tilted his head to avoid the dagger while he swiped his other paw at her. Before the paw could build up any momentum, Shiro had already frozen a scaffold-like structure on the bear's body, stopping the paw. "Come on, do you really expect me to let you hit me with that paw of yours? My frail body can't handle it, you know." Shiro grinned as her dagger destroyed the bear's right eye. Exhibiting great flexibility, Shiro stepped on the back of the dagger and kicked as hard as she could. The force sent her through the air, but she landed softly with a smile. Fire Spirit Blessing activated. For the next 20 seconds, you will gain a 20% increase to magic damage and 20% increase to fire damage. Clutching her hand, Shiro caused the dagger to blow up with all of the stored MP. Boom. The resulting explosion caused the ground to rumble as Shiro stumbled. Restabilizing herself, she looked the head of the bear. "Ouch," Shiro muttered unconsciously since she could see parts of the bear's skull. The muscle fibers were pulsing as they tried to join back together but failed. Raina An. The bear roared in madness, charging towards Shiro. Jumping onto the tree branch, Shiro jumped once more as she landed behind the bear. The bear didn't turn around as the flames on his back grew larger. Creating a block of ice, Shiro hopped backwards whilst she saw the ice block melt in mere seconds. Raising both her arms slightly, 2 ice spears materialized as she threw them both towards the bear. After throwing the spears, she quickly created a third spear. With a slight delay, she twisted her body and threw the third spear with all of her might. The first 2 spears were aimed towards the arms of the bear, as the last one was aimed towards the chest. *CRCRR. The first 2 spears made contacts and froze over instantly, locking both arms into the ground. The last spear made contact as well. However, fire erupted around the bear as he covered his entire body in a mass of flames. Shiro frowned, seeing her plan go out the window. The bear roared, sending tins of fireballs hurling towards her. Freezing the ground beneath her feet, Shiro started to skate around as her agility helped increase her momentum. Boom 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 boom. Most of the fireballs missed, but for the odd few which were on target, Shiro created her own ice bullet as it canceled each other out. Shiro narrowed her eyes whilst she crouched down and started to manually construct a ramp. Under the paw, through the legs, around the back, over the head. A roller coaster seemed to have been created as Shiro maneuvered around the bear, causing it to not be able to lock onto her. Little by little, an orb of ice formed around the bear. Seeing the orb of ice completed, Shiro made a ramp straight up. Making 2 spears, she threw both of them with a slight gap between them. The first spear was countered with a fire breath, whilst the second one took its place. Bringing her hands together, Shiro controlled the ice orb she created and fused it together with the second spear. This caused the weight of the spear to increase dramatically as it crushed the bear beneath it. Not allowing it a moment's rest, Shiro made a nano dagger and tried to decapitate the bear whilst it couldn't retaliate. She frowned as she saw the dagger fail to cut deeply into the neck. "Che, we'll do this the hard way then, big guy," Shiro said as she flicked her wrist and a second dagger materialized. Stabbing the dagger through the tongue and jaw of the bear, she froze it in place to make sure it couldn't move. Making one more dagger, she twirled them both as she cut away at the face of the bear. Layer by layer, the bear's cries became more painful. It tried to thrash around crazily, but Shiro kept a constant supply of mana to the ice, locking the bear down. This prevented the bear from leaving since the ice always regenerated. The bear had also tried to coat his body with fire, but the ice was mostly concentrated near Shiro, so it didn't melt as easily. He could only suffer while Shiro slowly killed it. After a few minutes of constant attacking with her 2 daggers, Shiro panted heavily, seeing the bear finally die. The skull of the bear had lost most of its flesh as Shiro scraped it to the bone and destroyed the brain. "Pooey, what a pain," Shiro said, spitting out some blood that got into her mouth. Standing up, she dismissed the ice. Carving a hole through the torso leading to where the heart would be, Shiro frowned when she realized she couldn't reach it due to her small arm length. "Huh." She sighed with fatigue as she brought up her 2 daggers and carved away. After digging for a while, she finally saw the heart. The heart itself was roughly 2/5 of her body size. Rummaging around in the heart, she pulled out a mana stone the size of a large chicken egg. "Collect." The body disappeared and Shiro drank as much mana as she could. Looking over at the list of loot, Shiro couldn't help but nod and appreciate the reward. At least it was worth her efforts. Rewards consisted of a bunch of miscellaneous items fit for blacksmiths, pharmacists, and alchemists. It also included several pieces of armor which were mostly blue, ranked, and a single lucky skill stone. Selling the miscellaneous items, she recycled the equipment she didn't need. The equipment that remained were Fire Spirit Infused Power Gauntlet, blue, LVL 20, plus 20 STR, plus 15 VIT, minus 10 AGI. Skill Power Boost, plus 100% damage, plus 15 STR, plus 30% damage taken. Duration, 20 seconds. Cooldown 5 minutes. Empowered Fire Bear Guards, blue, LVL 20, plus 20 def, plus 15 VIT, plus 5 STR. Fire Spirit Empowered Hammer, blue, LVL 20. Requirements, 60 STR, plus 30 blunt damage, plus 15 momentum boost, plus 15 fire element, minus 10 attack speed. Passive skill, reduced weight. Reduced weight reduces the weight of the weapon by 30%. The passive skill of the hammer was impressive as it would help counter the minus 10 attack speed. Shiro decided to save the hammer until she outgrew the level since it may help her. Recycling it right now would just be a waste of loot and might cause her to regret it later. Turning her attention to the lucky skill stone, she couldn't help but put on a slightly bitter face. Lucky skill stone, purple, disguise. Disguise your status from under any peeking eye. Cost, 100 MP upon activation. Will take another 100 MP each time someone peeks at your stats. Duration, until cancellation. Cooldown none. There were a few types of skill stones. Lucky skill stones, curse skill stones, bless skill stones, and normal skill stones. Lucky skill stones gives you the skill you need at that moment in time. Cursed skill stones give you a skill that would act like a double-edged sword. Blessed skill stones would evolve one of your existing skills. This can be whichever skill you choose. And finally, a normal skill stone which would give you a random skill according to your level. However, the skill may not be fit for you as it may be for a different class. Shiro pulled a slightly bitter face due to the timing. A lucky skill stone was one of the rarest items, and it was a known fact that when you get this stone at a high level, this lucky skill stone could very well give you a logic-shattering skill. In her past life, she had only ever heard of a handful of people getting the lucky skill stones and never saw one. Yet, this lucky skill stone was wasted to get a disguise skill. Was she supposed to be happy or sad? She got a skill she needed, but on the other hand, she wasted such a good item. It was akin to spending 1,000,000 gold to buy a loaf of bread. Be grateful for what you get, I guess? She thought, crushing the stone and learnt the skill. She checked her total stats with her new equipment included. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl, evolution criteria yet to be met. Title, Elite Class. Title bonus, plus 10 in every stat. Level, 20. Class, Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP, 1430/3800, MP 20/4800, STR 35 plus 25 plus 10 title bonus, VIT 30 plus 40 plus 10 title bonus, INT 55-60 plus 50 plus 10 title bonus, AGI 50 plus 5 plus 10 title bonus, DX 21 plus 10 title bonus, Def 10 plus 32 plus 10 title bonus, unassigned points 5-0, balance 20,100 US dollars, equipment tap to display. Through killing the leader class bear, she had managed to pseudo level up once. Since her equipment was changed, she lost plus 10 INT, so she invested all 5 points into INT to try to make up for a little of that lost damage. Looking at the destroyed surroundings due to the fight, she couldn't help but rub her nose slightly. This is just the destruction caused when I use my ice powers. When I get the higher level Nanomancer skills, I would be the enemy of nature preservation. She thought as the destructive prowess that came with the Nanomancer class was incredible. She hopped onto a tree branch while she waited for her health to regenerate. Taking this chance, she decided to see how the disguise skill worked. Current display. Shiro, LVL 20, Snow Girl Elite. HP, 1430/3800. MP, 20/4800. Seeing this, she now understood what the party of 5 saw when they looked at her. But why can they see my HP and MP? She thought as she started to disguise it a little. Shiro, LVL 20, Ice Mage. There, she thought with a smile. That way she can avoid them peering into her remaining HP and MP. When her HP and MP were full, she touched the obelisk and tapped 3F. Her vision cleared as she examined the room in front of her. The room was surrounded with a black marble-type material. Large pillars supported the roof as red flags could be seen hanging from the top. Towards the back of the room, a towering throne could be seen as a figure sat on the throne with an air of nonchalance. It had black armor with neon orange highlights. It didn't wear a helmet as a ball of fire can be seen where the head was supposed to be. One fight after another, huh? I'm game. Shiro grinned. Fire Spirit Knight, LVL 20 boss. ####. Where's the obelisk guardian? A man asked as 7 people approached the obelisk. That's weird. Another man muttered, seeing the signs of battle. Was there anyone else in the dungeon except for you guys? He asked. The people he was looking at was the party of 5 Shiro met before. After waiting for 2 days, rescue came. Due to the time difference inside the dungeon and the outside world, 1 day in the dungeon was 1 hour outside. The backup was 2 D-rank adventurers who were tasked to conquer the mutated dungeon with the help of the party. There was no one apart from us. Exine Phone replied. Then the most likely situation would be a monster clashing with the obelisk guardian. The first man said as the party of 5 perked up. Why would a monster fight the guardian? Trevor asked. It's uncommon but not unheard of. When a monster in the dungeon reaches a certain amount of intellect and strength, they will be freed of the dungeon's constraints. At this point, they'll be able to leave the dungeon. The first man said, frowning at the destruction. Kin, what class do you think the monster is? Has it reached D rank? He asked. No, it hasn't. But it's not far, peak class. Kin replied. Then we don't have to worry. A single peak E class won't be able to solo an E rank boss. It needs a party of 5 East ranks coordinating well with each other to beat one. The first man said in relief. Entering the second floor, they made their way to the obelisk once more. They froze, seeing the destruction magnify by a few times. D rank? The man asked with a serious face. Definitely. Ken replied. All right, everyone prepare yourselves. The 2 monsters may very well be fighting right now. We'll take advantage of this and finish them both off, he said as they nodded. The party of 5 was nervous as they gulped unconsciously. When their vision cleared, they froze in shock. The entire room was encased in ice, as there were some parts thicker than others. Melted sections could also be seen, as they knew whatever happened here was beyond their league. This shouldn't be something a single E-ranked could output. The Snow Girl. The party of five, though collectively, since she was the only one staying in the ice element system, whilst everything turned to the fire element system. The first man's expression turned serious as he turned to Kin. Record this down. Saturday, 24th, January 2045. E-rank Dungeon 14. Location, New York. Entry, Dungeon Monster Escape. Estimated rank, D. The man said as Kin nodded and wrote everything down. Do you guys know anything about the monster? The man asked, turning to the five. Xi and Feng looked at his friends and nodded. We have a clue. It was a named monster called Shino or something. S-H-I-N-O. Her race was Snow Girl. Xi and Feng said as the man nodded. Put this through the guild. The man said as Kin entered everything into his device. Named Shino. Estimated danger rank, D. Race Snow Girl. Additional information. Soloed an E-rank mutated dungeon. The first ever record of Shiro in this world was a misspelt file. After defeating the boss, Shiro decided to teleport to the closest teleport shrine. Teleport shrines were naturally erected buildings, as they provided a waypoint for people to use as transportation. The teleport shrines were usually in the shape of a great tree hundreds of times bigger than people. There would be an obelisk-like object inside the teleport shrine, as it would allow a person to choose which teleport shrine they wanted to go to. However, the range of teleportation was limited to what you've already discovered. Example being if there were two shrines at point A and B respectively. If you haven't discovered point B, then you won't be able to teleport to that shrine. But there is a way to bypass this. There are two main options, and those are link and party. Link is when two shrines becomes linked to each other, meaning even if you haven't discovered the shrine, you would be able to teleport. The other was party. This is when the party leader teleports everyone in the party. This, however, was then limited by the shrines the party leader himself/herself had been to. What confused Shiro the most was why she could use it as well. She's never heard of a monster being able to use the teleport shrine, so she was surprised. And here she was, being prepared to be dropped in the middle of a forest outside the dungeon. Looking around her, she saw that there were a few people patrolling around. Just from the vibes they gave her, she knew they should be mid to top class D rank, roughly LVL 50. Her appearance surprised a few people as she was a gorgeous young girl. Her height and face gave them the idea that she was roughly 13 to 16 in age. She looked around with both curiosity and nervousness, making people believe that she was lost. Not wanting to hold the line up, Shiro walked out of the teleport shrine. She was shocked at the different architecture that was visible before her. Both the language and building type was different from the one she was used to. She could understand what the people around her was saying, but she can't speak, nor could she read their language. My priority should be learning about where I am at this current moment in time. But I also need to be able to communicate. She thought as she sought out one of the patrolmen. Liam LVL 46 Knight. Amen? Hello, miss. How can I help? He asked with a smile. Shiro opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She frowned in annoyance as Liam looked at her. Could it be that you can't talk right now? He asked, unsure. Shiro's eyes brightened and nodded quickly. Are you able to write? He asked. She shook her head. You obviously understand what I'm saying, but you can't speak or write. Can you read? He asked as she shook her head. How the hell did she live her life till now? He thought. Are you lost? He asked. Shiro shook her head, but then decided to nod it. She wasn't lost directional sense-wise, but she didn't know which city she was in. Do you know where your parents are? He asked again as she shook her head. Do you know who your parents are? She shook her head again. I'll take her to the guild for now. Maybe they can find out her background. Liam Wilford calling in. Is anyone free right now? He asked over a device. This is Jason Matthews. I'm currently free. Are you able to take my patrol for now? I've got a girl here who doesn't know who her parents are. She's mute, can't read nor write, but she can understand people. I'm going to take her to the guild and get her checked out. Got it. Give me your location. Teleport Shrine number 2. I'm just outside it. Okay, coming over now. We'll go to the guild and see if we can find out anything about you, okay? Liam said as Shiro nodded. Taking the moment to inspect her, he saw her display. Shiro LVL 20 Ice Mage. LVL 20 Ice Mage? She's as strong as a peak E rank adventurer. So young as well. He thought, seeing her LVL. As she was walking away, he realized what she was wearing. She wore a simple white dress and that was it. No socks or shoes. Did she run away from home or something? He thought with sympathy. Jason arrived not too long after as he and Liam chatted. Shiro sat by the side as she decided to check out her stats since she had nothing else to do. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl, evolution criteria yet to be met. Title, Elite Class. Title bonus, +10 in every stat. Level, 20. Class, Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP, 3800/3800. MP, 4800/4800. STR, 35, +25, +10 title bonus. VIT, 30, +40, +10 title bonus. INT, 60, +50, +10 title bonus. AGI, 50-60, +5, +10 title bonus. DX, 21 +10 title bonus. Def, 10, +32, +10 title bonus. Unassigned points, 10-0. Balance, 35,000 US dollars. Equipment, tap to display. All of the drops she received from killing the dungeon boss was heavy armor, which decreases speed, but gave her STR, VIT, and DF. They weren't useful for her, so she recycled everything using her Snowmancer class. Right now, she was almost finished with her class up. Snow Girl. Class up requirements. Heavy checkmark, Conquer E rank dungeon solo. Dash, D rank mana stone. Heavy checkmark, 100 int. The only problem left was the D rank mana stone. In order for her to obtain one, she'll need to kill a D ranked monster and get the stone. While it may not be hard, trying to find the right dungeon would be the hard part. She could search for D ranks out in the wild, but there was always a certain danger that comes with trying to find the monster out in the wild. While you're trying to hunt E rank, a C rank might just show up and kick you to the netherworld. Miss Shiro, are you ready? Liam walked over as Shiro nodded and stood up. Following the patrolman to the guild, Shiro looked around in curiosity. Do you want me to explain some of the shops here? He asked as he could see her curiosity. Seeing her nod, he took it as a cue and started to point at a few shops. The shops in this district is civilian clothing. They deal with clothes that don't contain any sort of benefit. Civilian clothing, if you will. We have the food court, the market. Liam continued to explain as most of the shops in this area was for civilians. And now from here on we have the facilities aimed towards adventurers. We have the Alchemist/Pharmacist Association, who deals with anything potion related. You're also able to register with them and take a test to officially become an alchemist. Next is the Blacksmiths Association. They deal with anything weapon and armor related. And finally, the Adventurers Guild. They deal with anything adventurer related. It's government funded and registers every adventurer in the world and provide them with benefits. Naturally, not every adventurer, since a few would opt out of this. There are other associations, but these are the big three and the ones you would most likely visit. Liam explained as Shiro nodded. Looking at the Adventurers Guild in front of her, Shiro couldn't help but marvel at the enormous building. Standing at more than 50 floors from what she could tell, the building had a sleek and smooth design. Wow, she thought unconsciously. Come on, Liam said with a smile as they walked towards the reception. Liam and the receptionist talked as he explained the situation to her. Shiro sat by the side as she watched the adventurers walk around. Odd. How come the adventurers here are all E to D ranks? There's hardly any C rank or above. Actually, none for that matter. Shiro thought. However, what she was most surprised about was how the demi-humans are interacting with everyone. Elves, beastkin, and other subspecies weren't uncommon, but they weren't treated as slaves either. This was different from what she remembered, as there was heavy discrimination against the demi-humans. Miss Shiro, the receptionist called out as Shiro turned towards her. Would you like to follow me to the examination room? She asked as Shiro nodded. Liam followed along as they walked towards the elevator. Pressing the button for the 25th floor, the lady turned towards Shiro. This examination will be recognizing your mana signal and track your identity. Hopefully, this should allow us to find your parents, she said with a smile. Shiro nodded, but she could already guess the results. When they arrived on the 25th floor, they entered a private room with an orb and a computer next to each other. Just place your hand onto that orb, and it'll read your mana, the lady said as she sat in front of the computer. Shiro nodded as she placed her hand on the orb. Liam stood beside them without saying anything. Data not found. As expected, there were no records pertaining to her identity. She was a mystery. This shouldn't be. Give me a second, the lady said as she started to tap away at the keyboard. Strange. It's as if you don't exist. No records, no matching mana, no nothing. The lady frowned as she turned to Shiro. Even if you didn't register with the Adventurers Guild, there should still be some records. Where were you before you came here? She asked. Shiro shook her head, showing them she didn't know. Huh. All right, head to the lobby and wait for me there. I'll have to ask my superiors about this, she said as Liam nodded. Returning back to floor 1, Liam went to buy a few sandwiches for Shiro to eat. Sitting down, he saw her look towards the city. Are you perhaps curious about the city? He asked as she nodded. The city is called New York. It used to be one of the most populated cities in the world. Liam started to talk as Shiro turned to him and listened earnestly. New York was even more popular than the capital. However, after what we now claim as the Great Metamorphosis, the city now became a location for the weak. The very world itself changed as the land expanded. What we knew of Earth is now just a mere fraction of the current world. As for New York City, the city is now located in the center of a cluster of dungeons. Each of these dungeons don't surpass D rank in scale, making this a prime location for people to train themselves up and never return to. When an adventurer overcomes D rank, they would leave for the other cities. They provide the adventurers with more benefits and more facilities. Not to mention exploration of the great unknown. The adventurous hearts of many were awakened with the Great Metamorphosis. Factions also create subsidiary branches in this city to find anyone with potential and send it to the main branches. Liam said as Shiro raised a hand to stop him. HM? Are you interested in factions? He asked as she nodded. Factions are what people create outside of the Adventurers Guild. There are millions of factions already made and more still coming. However, there are 5 main factions who haven't been toppled since the start of the Great Metamorphosis. The Great American Dream faction led by the tanker hero James Thomas. Tianlong faction, or Heavenly Dragon faction. This Chinese faction is led by the martial hero Ling Tian. Lumia's Blessing faction. This British faction focuses on providing everyone with support. This is led by the healing hero Rachel Victoria. The Gods Pantheon faction led by the mage hero Ilya Ivanova. Some may think this is a Russian faction, but they're wrong. This is a multinational faction which the leader is determined through a selection process. And finally, the Rising Sun faction led by what I would like to call the Yandere. Surname Minamoto, given name Keiko. She is Minamoto Keiko, the assassin hero who kills without mercy. Liam said as Shiro nodded. Her aura became cold, however, at the mention of hero. She hates heroes. She was betrayed and killed by one after all. From what she knew, they were egotistical hypocrites. However, she too knew why they were called heroes. It wasn't their morals or what they do, it's their class title and power. She didn't know the specifics, but she knew that getting a hero title grants you a lot of benefits. The hero who killed her had the title, Light-Bearer Hero. The title granted him control over the element, light, as it could increase his speed and increase the temperature of his attacks. There were more benefits, but those were the ones she could recognize. A Light-Bearer Hero? If only I can see you one more time. Shiro thought as her killing intent surged outwards. She suddenly remembered where she was and quickly restrained the intent. Peeking slightly at Liam, she saw that his face was slightly pale. She tilted her head as she gestured her confusion. HM? Oh, it's nothing. Liam replied. What was that? Liam thought, nervously looking around. The sudden killing intent made him hold his breath and cold sweat run down his back. He couldn't locate the source as the killing intent was so dense and it covered quite a large area around them. He would have never imagined the source to be the young girl sitting in front of him. However, what no one realized was Shiro's name turning black when she had thought about the light-bearer hero. When she restrained her killing intent, her name returned back to white. 6. Sorry for the wait, the lady called out as she walked over. Since Miss Shiro doesn't have an identity right now, the superiors have asked me to create one for you. As you are also unable to read or write, you are eligible to enter the school and learn from there. The lady said as Shiro thought about it. Since I don't have an identity, traveling from place to place would probably be difficult. I can also learn more about this world in the school. She nodded her head eagerly and flashed a happy smile. How cute. Both the lady and Liam thought seeing her smile. We'll just need you to take the rank examination and we'll send you to the school. Lodging and other services will be provided free of charge as a part of the current education scheme, the lady said as they followed behind her. This time they entered what seems to be like a combat room as there was a stage in the center. The examination is simple. We'll first check your mana density. Then we'll test your combat prowess to see your rank. The lady smiled as Shiro nodded. Since we've already scanned your mana, we just need to do the combat test, she said walking up onto the stage. She rolled her sleeves up and gestured to Shiro. Emilia LVL 50 Berserker. You want me to fight you? Shiro thought as it showed on her face. Ha ha ha, I'm not going to fight you seriously. Rather you attack me and I evaluate your performance. Emilia giggled slightly. Shiro nodded and walked onto the stage. Her concentrated peaked as this was a good chance to see how she fares against a LVL 50D rank adventurer. Emilia's smile faded slightly as she was surprised at the concentration and pressure Shiro was emitting. Whenever you're ready, Emilia said, and Shiro nodded. Ice started to spread outwards from her feet as the entire stage became coated with a layer of ice. Emilia smiled before stamping downwards and cracked the ice. In the time she took to stamp down, Shiro was already near her. Fast, Emilia thought. Shiro punched towards her as Emilia hit the side of Shiro's hand and deflected the punch. She followed along with the momentum and punched with her other hand. Ducking quickly, Emilia tripped Shiro's legs as her body was suspended slightly. Emilia quickly pulled back as Shiro created ice around her and slid backwards. She raised her hands as ice spears formed next to her. Asterisk boom. Boom, boom. Emilia dodged and punched the sides of the 3 ice spears, shattering them easily. By the time she retracted her punch, Shiro was back in her reach. Shiro punched towards her stomach as Emilia tried to dodge backwards. Her movement was suddenly stopped as an ice block was preventing her from moving. Asterisk boom. She managed to catch Shiro's punch before it hit her stomach while her other hand was aimed at Shiro's face. Similar to how Emilia blocked her punch, Shiro had already created a piece of ice to link her spare hand and Emilia's hand together, stopping her to exerting force. Sensing danger, Emilia quickly jumped backwards as ice exploded out from Shiro. Not giving her a moment's rest, Shiro flicked her wrist as ice wrapped around Emilia's legs to stop her from moving. Shiro dashed towards Emilia as she twisted her body and threw an ice spear with increased momentum. Emilia's face became serious as she punched downwards. Her hands glowed for a moment before that glow disappeared. The punch shattered the ice as Emilia flipped backwards, avoiding the spear. All right, you pass. Combat experience is definitely above AE rank. Mana is above E rank. However, you haven't classed up yet, so we'll leave you with AE plus rank. Would that be fine? Emilia said, stopping the examination. Shiro nodded. That last move was definitely the move, ground pound. Shiro thought, as it would have damaged her quite a lot considering Emilia's stats. Please head to the lobby while I set up your identity. Emilia smiled. Seeing Shiro leave, Emilia sat down and took a deep breath. Who is she really? Emilia muttered. Looking at her hands, Emilia clenched her fists. It was like I was fighting a senior adventurer just without the strength. The pressure she emitted and her instincts didn't match her current strength. I almost made use of my skills against her. No normal E rank nor D rank can force me to do this, Emilia thought. Most people in the city knew about the D rank ex-adventurer Emilia. though they don't know the exact reason of why she quit to become a guild staff. What they did know was that her combat prowess and skills allowed her to face off against low C-ranked adventurers. For her to be forced to almost use her skills against a rank LVL 20 was unbelievable. The enemy was an ice mage at that too. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. As they walked away from the scene, Liam couldn't help but glance over at Shiro. Miss Shiro, where did you learn to fight like that? Aren't you supposed to be a mage? He asked as she turned to him. Is he being serious? She thought hearing him ask her that question. Shiro pointed at her throat, then her mouth as Liam face-palmed. All right, can't talk, he muttered. Sitting back down, Liam brought out the sandwich he bought before. Hungry? He asked as Shiro nodded. Taking the sandwich into her hand, Shiro took a bite. Tasteless, Shiro thought with a slight frown, but made sure he couldn't see it. How is it? Liam asked. Shiro smiled as took another bite. This time, she hid a mana stone in between as she ate with a happy smile. Liam sighed in relief. He was hoping the sandwich was to her liking. Shiro finished the sandwich as she saw Amelia walking towards them with a smile. Sitting down, she put a few things on the table. First is your ID. You can always apply for a new one if you lose your old one, she said, pointing at the card. When making her ID, she did see another similar entry as it was a record about an escaped monster. However, the system clearly showed Shiro being a human ice mage. Not to mention, the monster was called Shino, not Shiro. Name, Shiro. Estimated age, 13. Rank, E+. Class, Ice Mage. LVL, 20. This book is a guide on all the facilities in the city. You can also find a map of the whole city in this guide, Amelia said, opening up the book. Shiro could see the guide written in an unfamiliar language as she tilted her head. If you can't read, don't worry. I let them know about this so you can press on a location you're curious about and it'll explain it to you. Amelia smiled and pressed on the Blacksmith Association. The Blacksmiths Association is the gathering point of people aspiring to craft weapons and armor. You may commission a custom-made armor/weapon or check out an artisan's wares. See. Amelia smiled as Shiro nodded, hearing the audio cue. In this file are the documents needed for the school transfer. Everything you need to know is in there, and once again, audio cued. Instructions are inside, and it will tell you what to do, Amelia said, handing her a file with paperwork inside. When you find the reception, just give this file to the receptionist, and she'll sort things out. Amelia singled out a file as Shiro nodded. Shiro then pointed at the two stones as she looked at them in surprise. Artificial Skill Stone, Minimap. Minimap displays a map of your surroundings as well as the general location of monsters nearby. Artificial Skill Stone, Inspection. Inspection shows the name, level, class, HP, and MP of a monster. Artificial Skill Stone? They can make those? Shiro thought in shock. She heard about the skill stones being dropped, but never being made. These two stones are what is given to every adventurer. These help tremendously out in the field, and the creator made it a requirement for everyone to have one of each. Amelia chuckled slightly, seeing Shiro's surprise. It reminded her of a little kid when they're given a new toy. Shiro grabbed the two stones and looked at Amelia just to make sure she wasn't high or something. Go on. Amelia gestured as Shiro learned the skills. Passive skill gained, Minimap. Skill gained, Inspection. As the passive skill suggested, a minimap could be seen on the top right corner of her vision. It allowed her to see the surroundings as well as white dots to represent humans. Her icon was the shape of an arrow, as it was also white. This was due to her disguise skill, changing her displayed race to human with the addition of changing her class from Snow Girl to Ice Mage. Going through a few more formalities with the help of Liam, Shiro had her identity completed and was ready for school. They settled with her being around 13 due to her features being still quite immature. Let's see. Found it. Shiro smiled as she pressed on the images with a hammer and coins. Auction building. Find the items you want and either bid or buy them. For her class up, she needed a D rank mana stone. The stone shouldn't be too hard to procure as both blacksmiths and pharmacists needed in their respective crafts. Considering the fact that this city is a place where E to D ranks hang out, there should be quite a few pieces of D rank mana stone. Making her way to the building, she entered it and was greeted by a well-decorated room. The main hub had electronic displays showing you what items were on sale, as well as the auction rooms the items were being sold in. This is just like the terminal back in Aria. It shouldn't be too hard to use, Shiro thought as she tapped the screen. The layout was simple as it showed items that were popular, recommended, and suitable for newcomers. Above this, there was a bar that shows right what you need, and a search button next to it. This Missy can't talk, read, or write. What the hell does any of this mean? Shiro thought as her face was frustrated. She thought they would have pictures to show which item was on sale and the price. Yet she didn't think that there were so many miscellaneous items that it covered the entire page. The categories were written instead of pictures, so she couldn't look for mana stones that way either. Maybe someone can help me, Shiro thought as she looked around and walked to the closest person near her. She couldn't speak, so she tapped his arm to get his attention. "Che, don't bother me," the man said, glaring at her. She decided to look for people that seemed to be working here instead. "Hello, how may I help?" a man asked as she walked over to the reception. Shiro took out a mana stone as she pointed at it. "You wish to put a mana stone on sale?" he asked, but she shook her head. "You want to buy mana stones?" Shiro gave him a nod. "You can find mana stones on those terminals," the man said, pointing over at the terminals. She shook her head. Going through the constant back and forth of not knowing what Shiro wanted to convey, the man became annoyed. "You need help but won't tell me what you need help with. Is this a joke?" he said with a frown. "Joke my ass. If this Missy could speak, I wouldn't even be asking you, would I?" Shiro thought in her head with frustration. Gesturing towards her throat and mouth, she made an X sign showing him she couldn't speak. "You can't speak?" he asked as she nodded with a roll of her eyes. "All right, so you want to buy a mana stone, right?" the man asked, feeling a little guilty. Shiro nodded as he tapped away at his computer. "What rank do you need?" he asked. "Why are you still asking that question? Did you forget that this Missy here can't speak?" Shiro thought as she looked at him with a blank expression. "Oh right, put one finger up for E rank and 2 fingers up for D rank. For C rank and higher, you would need to look for it in a bigger city," the man said as Shiro held 2 fingers up. "D rank. Okay. The lowest price for a D rank mana stone is $25,000 and is currently underbid in room 6, the man said as Shiro nodded. "You'll have to use a terminal if you want to bid," the man continued. "Since you don't know how to use one, I can do it for you. Place your hand onto this crystal and it'll subtract the required USD from your account," the man said, showing her the bidding page and the crystal. Shiro nodded as she touched the crystal. "Transfer $26,000? She saw this on her interface as confirmed. The number on the bidding page jumped up to $26,000 as the man was slightly surprised. Even though the young girl in front of him was a LVL-20 adventurer, he didn't think she'll hold that much money. The bid finally ended with the final cost being $30,000. Shiro waited patiently as the man went to retrieve the item. "Please double-check that you have the right item before you leave," he said, handing her the mana stone. D-rank mana stone. A D-ranked mana stone taken from the corpse of a hobgoblin. Shiro nodded as she jogged out of the auction house. She can afford a $30,000 mana stone but no shoes or socks? The man thought, watching her leave. Shiro sat down near a fountain as she looked at her interface. Class up requirements met. Would you like to class up into Snow Girl? Class up requirements met. Would you like to class up into Snow Girl? Shiro was about to confirm when she realized something. Class UPS for a monster may be different compared to the class up a human would experience. In her past life, she remembers seeing a monster evolve before their eyes, and it was a spectacle. You couldn't not see it. A beam of energy emerged from the monster as a cocoon formed around it. If that was to happen in the middle of a plaza, Shiro shivered slightly, thinking about the consequences. The best way would be for me to enter a dungeon. I've got some time before I need to head towards the school dorms where I would be studying for now, so I should be fine, she thought as she brought up her map. She remembers the dungeon signs being that of a tower. There were several E-ranked dungeons nearby, and the closest one was just a 5-minute jog away from where she was. Storing everything away in her inventory, Shiro jogged over to the dungeon. Due to her high AGI, it didn't take too long for her to arrive. This dungeon was a public one as anyone can enter when they want to. There are restrictions to how many people can go in there at a time though. If a dungeon is higher than level 10, one would need at least a party of 5 E ranks to enter. From what she could hear from the surroundings, this dungeon was a particularly weak dungeon, so anyone can go in. Even solo. It was good that she could enter alone. However, even if she couldn't, she would have just found another chance to class up. Her task was simple. Go in, class up, come out. Nothing more, nothing less. Entering the dungeon, she saw that she was in the middle of a plane. Slimes were jumping around as one tried to attack her. HP 3795/3800. Shiro looked at the blue slime which dealt 5 damage to her. Crouching down, Shiro gave the slime a smile as she reached out her hand. Tapping the would-be forehead of the slime, she froze the slime instantly and shattered it. Jogging a safe distance away, she made sure that no one is around her before confirming the class up. Blue light appeared near her as it formed a silk-like layer which wrapped around her body. Shiro could feel her powers increasing as she gained knowledge about her new skills. Class up complete. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl. Evolution criteria yet to be met. Level, 21. Class, Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP, 3800/3800. MP, 4800/4800. STR, 35, plus 25. VIT, 30, plus 40. INT, 60, plus 50. AGI, 60, plus 5. Dex, 21. Def, 10, plus 32. Unassigned points, 20. Balance, 5,000 US dollars. Equipment, tap to display. Skills, Snow Girl. Tier 2 Ice Magic, Passive Regeneration, Blessed by Ice, Snow Magic, Faded Snow Movement, Cold Aura. Snowmancer, Dagger Creation. Other, Minimap, Inspection, Disguise, Power Boost, Equipment, Fire Spirit Blessing, Equipment. The silk cocoon unwrapped itself as Shiro sighed in relief. Thankfully, I didn't class up back in the plaza. She thought before checking out her new skills. Snow Magic. Magic which has high synergy with ice magic. Snow magic is primarily used to obscure sights, used as a medium for ice magic and control enemy movements to a certain extent. Current output power. Tier 2, matches tiers with ice magic. Faded Snow Movement. Turn a portion of your body into snow as you increase movement speed and gain a certain amount of damage nullification. With enough MP, you may even regenerate a limb, unusable at this moment in time due to low MP. Plus 50% movement speed. Minus 30% damage taken. Cost, 300 MP upon activation, 50 MP per second. Cold Aura, passive. The area around you will always be cold and fluctuate depending on your anger and bloodthirst. Plus 10% ice efficiency. Plus 10% snow efficiency. She smiled seeing Faded Snow Movement as it would help her a lot in a fight. After she had classed up, it rewarded her with 20 points straight up. She put 10 points into her INT, 5 points into AGI, and the last 5 into DX. This bumped her total MP to 5,300. Walking back to the dungeon gate, she left with a light smile. The people were surprised seeing her exit so fast as they saw her enter a few minutes ago, but they shivered slightly when she walked past due to the low temperature. As she was walking, Shiro couldn't help but notice some changes to her skin. After her class up, her skin became much smoother and soft-looking that she couldn't help but give it a pinch and poke. Her skin was cool to the touch as it was rather refreshing. How nice, she thought. To outsiders, a beautiful young girl was walking whilst prodding her own arm. As she made her way to the school, she saw the building situated in the middle of several open fields. There were branches connected to the main building as she could see a separate building which seemed to be the lodging. Walking over, Shiro looked at the students in curiosity. Most of them were well-dressed and seemed to be curious about her as well. Well, mostly the fact that she's barefooted even though Shiro herself doesn't really mind. Arriving at the lodging, she checked her guide once more to make sure the location is correct. Matching up the map in the guide with her own mini-map, Shiro sighed in relief. Knocking on the door, she heard a beep as an audio cue kicked in. Due to the lack of student ID, please state in simple words the reason for your arrival. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Like hell I can speak. Shiro cursed in her mind as this was annoying her. She wished she could learn how to write this language quickly so she can actually communicate, though it still wouldn't help in this situation as she needed to speak. While she could try to speak out, it would just seem like she's opening her mouth without actually saying anything. Maybe it was due to her monster physiology, but no recognizable language came out of her mouth. In fact, no noise came out except for a few cries like ah or oh. As Shiro's frustration grew, the temperature around her dropped as frost could be seen forming over the device. Hello? Excuse me? A shivering voice rang out behind Shiro as she calmed down quickly. Turning around, she saw what seemed to be an elf. She had long blonde hair, pointed ears, emerald eyes, a delicate face, and modest body proportions. Her height was roughly half a head taller than Shiro. She sighed in relief as she felt the temperature rise again. Lyrica LVL 10, Elven Swordswoman. While Shiro was inspecting Lyrica, she was also inspecting the Shiro. Shiro LVL 21, Ice Mage. Wow, level 21. Lyrica said, astonished at Shiro's level. So I saw you struggle with the voice recognition. Do you need help? She asked with some nervousness in her voice, seeing Shiro stare at her so intently. Shiro nodded and held up a piece of paper. She remembered Amelia telling her to show this to the lady at the reception, so it might help her out here. HM? Let's see. Air name, Shiro. Age, 13. Disabilities. Mute? So that's why. Lyrica couldn't help but smile wearily as it was truly unfortunate. For those without a student ID, they had to state the reason of why they were visiting. Yet the girl in front of her was mute, so how could she state the reason as to why she was here? Here, I'll take you inside. Lyrica smiled as she scanned her ID and opened the door. What a nice girl, Shiro thought with a smile. Following her in, they walked towards the registration till. Excuse me, Lyrica called out as a middle-aged lady walked up. Lyrica? Who's this? She asked, peeking over at Shiro. She's Shiro, and she seems to be a new student. She's mute so she couldn't get in, Lyrica said as she gestured towards Shiro. Seeing that the woman in front of her should be the receptionist, Shiro brought out the files. The woman saw the files and understood what Shiro needed. Taking the files, she started to work away at her computer. Shiro wanted to say thank you to Lyrica, but could only sigh since she wouldn't be able to understand her. Done. Here is your student ID. Your room is on the third floor, room 306, next to Lyrica's. You can help each other out, the lady said as Lyrica nodded. I'll show you the way, Lyrica said eagerly as she went to grab Shiro's hand. However, she flinched slightly, feeling how cold her hands were. Shiro frowned at her hands and could only give Lyrica an apologizing smile. No worries. Is it something you can't control? I saw it get colder when you got annoyed outside, Lyrica said as Shiro nodded. Shiro was surprised at how observant she was. Lyrica walked in front of Shiro as she showed her the way to her room. So your uniform should arrive tomorrow. Your timetable should be on the tablet. As for the lessons, we can choose whichever lesson you want to go to. You just need to be able to pass the end-of-year exams, Lyrica said as they arrived. Shiro pulled out her file as she showed it to Lyrica. Pointing at the words, Shiro shook her head. The information is wrong? She asked. Shiro pointed again as she shook her head. Is there something missing? Lyrica asked, taking a second read of the information. Shiro frowned but gained an idea. She pointed at her throat and made an X sign. I know you're mute, Lyrica nodded. Shiro then made a writing motion and made an X. You can't write either? Shiro nodded. She then pointed to her eyes before pointing at the words and made another X sign. You can't read either? Lyrica said, surprised. How did she survive till now? Lyrica thought as she had an idea of what Shiro was asking. You want me to help you with reading and writing? She asked, not sure. Shiro nodded quickly with a smile. Oh, that's simple then. I can teach you about it every day when you have time. Lyrica smiled as Shiro nodded. Entering her room, Shiro sat down on a chair and leaned backwards. Her mind started to wander as she thought about the girl she just met. That girl, Lyrica? She shows symptoms of a low self-esteem. Not only was she concerned over the impression she made on me, she was also slightly reluctant to put herself first. Her body posture showed that she tried to make herself seem smaller than mine. Rather than saying when she had time to teach me, she was worried about whether or not I had time to be taught. The most likely causes of this are poor performance or family issues. Shiro thought, looking at the wall connected to Lyrica's room. I should see if I can solve this for her as payment for teaching me how to read and write. Shiro thought. She wasn't the type to repay hatred with 100 times the hatred, nor was she one to repay kindness with 100 times the kindness. However, she did like to treat people who gave her a good impression. A whim if one had to classify this. For a girl like Lyrica who treated her well on the first meeting, Shiro would try to help her resolve a problem in return for that kindness. Hashtag. Lyrica, who returned to her room, sat by her bed. Was my impression on her okay? Was she freaked out by me? What if she doesn't want to be friends with me? I should be fine, right? I mean, she wanted my help. She needs MY help. Someone actually needed MY help. But what if I disappoint her with bad teaching? Lyrica thought with a nervous frown. I was too hasty. What if I can't teach her well enough? She muttered with a sigh. Looking at her tablet, Lyrica searched up the best ways of teaching reading and writing. Hashtag. Waking up to a frozen, stiff bed cover, Shiro's smile twitched as she knew this was most likely going to be an ongoing problem. She looked over at the clock and saw that it was 7:30 a.m. A little early, I guess. Shiro thought as she rubbed her stomach. Taking out a few mana stones, she threw it in her mouth as she had a look at how many ranked mana stones she had left. E-rank mana stone X 132. 132? Should last me for a while. Though with that being said, I should probably hunt a few more monsters to get my stock filled. Shiro thought as she noticed her increased intake. Previously, 3 to 5 mana stones could help her through the day. Now, 5 mana stones were a small snack for her. Considering the pattern, Shiro was sure she would eventually need to eat a warehouse full of E-rank stones just to fill her stomach. Asterisk. Knock. Shiro heard the door knock as she walked over and opened the door. Lyrica? Shiro thought, seeing her still in her pajamas. She had dark circles under her eyes as she pulled out a thick notebook. I've done it. I've found the best way to teach reading and writing to you, Lyrica said as she smiled. Her eyelids were drooping every so often as Shiro frowned slightly. Did this girl stay up all night to compile this? She thought. Shiro held the helms of her pajama as she dragged Lyrica back to her room. Shiro pointed at the bed as her eyes bore into Lyrica's. Huh? Shiro, you want me to sleep? Lyrica asked as Shiro nodded and took the notebook. She pushed Lyrica onto the bed gently as she looked at her. Shiro made a sleeping motion as she pointed at the pillow. Her eyes seemed to only take yes for an answer. Lyrica decided to relent to the comfort of the bed. The moment she closed her eyelids, she fell asleep almost instantly. Heh, what a foolish girl. Shiro, though, as she covered her up. She sat down as she looked at the notebook in her hands. Efficient notebook for learning reading and writing. Creator, Lyrica Valenstein. Shiro could only sigh seeing the effort Lyrica put into making this, even though they've barely met. As the first person I've met at this school, I'll give you some privileges, Shiro thought before turning to the notebook. She wanted to see if she could decode this notebook and study on her own. Man. Lyrica slowly opened her eyes as she felt refreshed after sleeping. Oh right, Shiro, she thought as she instantly sat up. She looked around and was surprised seeing Shiro at the desk with lots of paper around her. Currently, Shiro had tilted her head back as it seemed like she was fatigued. Noticing that Lyrica had woken up, Shiro grabbed a notepad and quickly wrote something down. You're awake? She looked over with a smile. Lyrica was both shocked and surprised. You learned reading and writing in the time I was asleep? How? Lyrica asked. Decoding. I matched my audio cues saying the words with the alphabet. I slowly decoded what each letter sounded like and memorized it. Shiro wrote down as Lyrica couldn't believe someone could learn a whole language in the time she was asleep. Unbelievable, Lyrica muttered. Is it really? We live in a world with dungeons and monsters. I think learning language in a day isn't that shocking. Shiro wrote down with a grin. I suppose so, Lyrica said as it made sense. So what lessons do you have? Lessons? I take swordsmanship, close-quarter combat, and dungeon exploration. Lyrica replied as Shiro nodded. Then I'll take those lessons with you. She smiled. What about yours? Aren't you an ice mage? Lyrica asked, slightly flustered. Shiro smiled as she flicked her fingers and a sword made from ice appeared. Close-quarters combat is important for a mage as well. Shiro wrote down. That, and also you've helped me greatly. No, it's mostly because of your efforts. I didn't do anything. Lyrica shook her head as she didn't believe in her own contribution. Without your help, this would have taken much longer. Being able to recognize the language today will help me greatly. Shiro wrote down as Lyrica became embarrassed. Since you've slept for the entire day, you want to go eat? It's 8 p.m. Lyrica said, shocked as she held the clock. It'll be my treat. Shiro wrote down. You really don't have to. I can afford it. Lyrica said, looking at Shiro. If you don't let me do this, I will be angry. Shiro frowned slightly. Fine, Lyrica said as she quickly dressed up. They walked towards the food court as Lyrica couldn't help but ask a few questions. Shiro, how come you don't have shoes or socks? She asked. I woke up this way. It doesn't matter though since it doesn't hurt. Shiro replied. How did you manage to get to level 21 even though you're 13? I kill monsters and level up obviously. That being said, how old are you? Me? I'm 15 and only a level 10, Lyrica said, slightly depressed. No worries. Since we can explore dungeons, I can help you level up quickly. Why are you so nice? Lyrica asked. You showed me kindness, so I'll naturally reply with kindness. Shiro smiled as they arrived. They ordered some food and started to eat away. Shiro only ordered a sandwich as she hid a few mana stones inside, or else the sandwich would taste just like water. It doesn't fill her up either. Only mana stone does. Lyrica seemed nervous as she kept fidgeting whilst they ate. What's wrong? Amen? Oh, it's just that this makes us seem like friends. Are we not, though? I guess, but you don't want to hang out with me. How come? Well, you might get looked down upon because you're hanging out with me. Everyone is at least level 13 plus when they reach the age of 15. Yet I'm still at level 10, Lyrica said. A genius like you who's reached level 21 at the age of 13 shouldn't be hanging out with trash like me. Lyrica sighed. And then what do you think about those people at a higher level? Some have a difference of 50 levels, yet they're at the same age. Are they still trash? Shiro wrote down. Of course not. They had the talent to reach such a high level after all, Lyrica replied. And then have you heard of those people who jump levels to challenge their superiors? Lyrica nodded as she proceeded to say, experience can make up for the lack in stats. Then we just need to give you more experience. Not to mention, your class seems to be different from the normal starting class. Maybe it's because of your elven heritage, but it may need more EXP for you to level up once. Shiro wrote down. It can't be, Lyrica denied. The class Elven Swordswoman is the basic class of every elf who chooses to use the sword, Lyrica said as Shiro felt her smile twitch. This girl, Shiro thought as she was denying herself a little too hard. She remembers the Elven classes. At the start, they were basic classes, but later on, they become harder to class up compared to normal classes. This is because everyone had a chance at obtaining the special class Elven Sword Saintess. Each type of weapon had its own Saint class, examples being Elven Archer Saint, Elven Axe Saint, and Elven Dagger Saint. However, there was only one shot at this class up, and if they failed, they had to go with Elven Grand Swordswoman, / Elven Grand Archer, etc. The only reason Shiro knew about this class was due to the elf in the Lightbearer Hero's party. She had the class and exhibited superior battle prowess than even the hero at certain moments in her life. Shame she died during a large battle that raged on for 5 days and 5 nights. Then why don't we work together? You can help me while I help you in the dungeon. Shiro smiled. How would I help you? I can't speak, so there are some limitations in my life. Not only that, I don't know anything about myself, so having a friend stay with me helps a lot. Shiro wrote down, making up a reason. Lyrica's eyes brightened up as she grabbed Shiro's hand whilst ignoring the cold. Shiro was shocked seeing her suddenly grabbing her hand. You can count on me, Lyrica said as Shiro could only chuckle slightly. After they finished their meal, they walked home with Lyrica feeling happier than ever. Shiro shook her head with a smile. But it was during this that an idea suddenly popped into her mind and a grin formed on her face. Tapping Lyrica's shoulders, Shiro showed Lyrica her notepad. So you know how elves have longer life expectancy than humans? Wouldn't that mean you're currently a lot younger in human years? So you aren't underlevel, but rather you're looking at this using the wrong age system. Shiro wrote down as Lyrica paused. That does seem to be the case. She replied, feeling embarrassed. However, age doesn't really matter. The higher level you are, the more mana you have stored inside you. The more mana you have, the more it vitalizes your body. This made it so that you're able to live for much longer than normal. But Shiro won't tell Lyrica that since she had just managed to give her some hope. Therefore, you have no reason to feel down. Shiro wrote as Lyrica nodded. You're right. Lyrica smiled. Returning back to their rooms, Shiro found a package next to her door. It's probably the uniform, she thought as she took the package inside with her. Inside the package was an assortment of clothes, a set for winter and a set for summer. The summer uniform was a short-sleeved gray dress with a red bow tie. The skirt stopped around her knees as the uniform also came with black knee socks and shoes. The winter uniform, on the other hand, was earmuffs, scarf, and a long-sleeved white shirt with a black vest. It included a uniform jacket as it was also gray in color, a separate skirt that reached her knees, and black tights. Folding up the winter uniform, Shiro placed the summer uniform ready for tomorrow. Before sleeping, she checked her timetable for the lessons she's applied for. Lessons: swordsmanship, magic, close quarters combat, dungeon exploration. She chose to apply for magic as there may be some interesting concepts in this new world. The first lesson tomorrow is swordsmanship. I have decent swordsmanship, but it can definitely improve, Shiro thought before falling asleep. ####. So Shiro here will be studying with everyone. She's 13, so be patient with her. Oh, also she's mute, so she'll be carrying her notepad around with her. The teacher called out in the swordsmanship class. A girl raised her hands as the teacher gestured for her to speak. Why is she in the swordsmanship class? Isn't she a level 21 ice mage? The girl asked. That's because learning some swordsmanship will be helpful for mages as close quarters are our weak points, Shiro wrote down. As Shiro mentioned, this is beneficial to her. Many high-level mages know some form of close-quarter combat to keep themselves safe. The teacher nodded. Sit wherever you like, she said as Shiro nodded. Walking over to Lyrica, Shiro sat next to her as she could hear a few mutters around her. Hey, Shiro smiled as Lyrica nodded. Try not to talk to me too much. They'll look down on you, Lyrica whispered. I don't care, Shiro wrote as they focused on the class. The class itself was pretty simple for Shiro. It focused on the stances and which part of the body you need to focus on when using the sword. While Shiro found this pretty boring, she could see Lyrica writing down notes earnestly. The theory lesson was over soon, and it was time for demonstration. Everyone paired up as Shiro could see a bunch of people wanting to pair up with Lyrica. However, she rejected all of them. How come you don't want to go with them? Shiro asked. They just want to suppress me. Because I'm level 10, my stats are lower than theirs. I can't really gain any form of experience sparring against them, Lyrica replied with a sigh. Then I'll spar with you. Shiro smiled. But aren't your stats much bigger than mine? I won't attack actively. You try to break my guard, okay? Land a hit on me, and you win, Shiro wrote down as she picked up a wooden longsword. Lyrica nodded as she too picked up a wooden longsword. Ready when you are. Shiro wrote down as she held the sword with one hand. Lyrica nodded as she ran towards Shiro with her sword. Shiro only smiled as she placed the flat side of the blade on her palm and parried Lyrica's sword. Shiro allowed her sword to slide down the blade as she was about to attack. Lyrica drew the blade upwards to try block, but Shiro landed a light attack on her shoulder. Her eyes narrowed as she had a suspicion about Lyrica's moves. Not giving up, Lyrica held the sword in a reverse grip as she clashed with Shiro once more. This time, at the very moment the swords clashed, Lyrica let go of her sword as she held it in an upright position. She twisted the sword as it moved Shiro's sword downwards. Shiro smiled as she crouched down and tripped Lyrica up. Again, Lyrica said as she had a smile on her face. They continued for several bouts as Lyrica kept getting knocked down. To outsiders, she was taking a beating. To Shiro, Lyrica was improving quickly. This girl is smart. She quickly corrects herself when she finds out what went wrong. If it wasn't for the other students suppressing her with their attributes, Lyrica would most definitely not have this self-esteem issue. Shiro thought as she hopped back and slid on the ground slightly. However, her movements seem a little awkward at times. It's like she's trying to use a staff rather than sword. She raised her hand to get Lyrica to stop. Picking up the notepad, Shiro started to write something down. You've improved a lot, Lyrica. So smart. Shiro praised. It's just dumb luck. Lyrica said as Shiro shook her head. I have an idea. Do you want to give it a try? An idea? What idea? Shiro walked over to the teacher and got her attention. Do you have a handle without a wooden blade? She asked. A handle? Yeah, we do. What do you need it for? I think Lyrica's moves match a different weapon better. I want to see if I can use my ice to find out the weapon. I see. Since you have an idea, give it a try. The teacher smiled as passed Shiro a wooden handle. Thank you. Shiro wrote down as she jogged back to Lyrica. The temperature around her dropped as ice started to coagulate on both ends of the handle. As the ice finished, Lyrica was surprised at what Shiro held in her hands. It was a dual-ended blade. On either side of the handle was a double-sided sword as Shiro lightly threw it over to Lyrica. Give it a try. Shiro wrote down as Lyrica nodded. Holding the weapon, Lyrica waved it around as she became more proficient. Wow, Shiro, this weapon is really easy to use. Lyrica said, surprised at how easy it was for her to use it. I knew it. Shiro thought with a smile. What Lyrica experienced was hidden proficiency. Hidden proficiency was a situation where the body would exhibit movement habits for a certain type of weapon. It wouldn't show up on the status board, so it was hard for people to know which weapon suited them. Most of the time, it was custom-made weapons. For those who did discover their hidden proficiency, their combat prowess soared as their body movements were designed to fit that weapon. While the dual-ended blade wasn't exactly Lyrica's hidden proficiency, Shiro already knew the weapon was something similar to the dual-ended blade. She noticed this during the fight as Lyrica would always fall back on using the bottom of her sword when she was forced into a tight situation. When used with a longsword, it is suicidal. When used with a dual-ended sword, it was effective. Try attacking me now. Shiro wrote down as Lyrica nodded. Twirling the blade, Lyrica charged towards Shiro. Parrying the top-down slash, Shiro twisted her body as she dodged the other end of the blade. Lyrica didn't let her loose as the blade followed Shiro's movements like a ghost. Parrying her attacks several more times with a few close calls, Shiro was surprised at how powerful Lyrica's hidden proficiency was. Even though she was suppressing herself until she was roughly level 10 in stats, it was still amazing for Lyrica to sneak in a few close calls. The spar finished as Lyrica panted heavily. Shiro, on the other hand, was fine as always. Congratulations, Lyrica. You found the weapon you're really good at. Shiro smiled and showed her the writing. It's all thanks to you, Shiro. Lyrica replied, happily feeling her confidence rise. Shiro was an enigma for her. The moment she arrived, Lyrica felt her life change. Shiro gave her confidence, and even a weapon she was strangely proficient in using. If Shiro never appeared, Lyrica doesn't know what kind of a state she would still be in. After the spar, it was time for lunch. Both Lyrica and Shiro went together as Shiro bought some sandwiches once again. Do you want to go dungeon exploring later? We'll try to get some money so we can make you that new weapon. Shiro wrote down whilst eating a mana stone-filled sandwich. What do you mean? Lyrica asked. Don't you need the dual-ended sword? We'll save up some money so we can go get one made for you. Then you'll be able to do dungeons much easier. Well, a higher level dungeon needs at least 5 people. I've always been on my own, so I don't really enter dungeons most of the time. When I do, the loot goes to the other people since they have more contribution than me. Lyrica admitted with slight shame. Shiro frowned hearing about this. It's fine. I had my class up, so I should be a D rank adventurer. Right now I'm AE+ because I didn't class up last time. Shiro explained, showing Lyrica her guild ID. Even then, we need 2 D ranks to enter the level 10 plus dungeon. Lyrica said as Shiro frowned. Troublesome. She thought. Is there a way to get a permit to enter the dungeon with just us two? Shiro asked, but Lyrica shook her head. Shiro tried to think of solutions, but couldn't come up with one. To level Lyrica up, the best way was for them to enter a dungeon higher level than 10. She was able to enter alone into the public dungeon last time, was due to the monsters being level 5 or below. That, and also she was AE+ rank adventurer. A woman walked past as she paused, seeing what Shiro had just wrote down. You want to enter a dungeon with just the 2 of you? She said as Shiro turned to her. Madison LVL 14, swordswoman. She had brown hair tied in a ponytail, black eyes, and an average face that had its own sense of beauty. Yes, is there anything wrong? Shiro wrote. Maybe not for you, but this loser would drag you down, Madison said, pointing her finger at Lyrica. Lyrica shrunk back, not daring to meet her eyes. Shiro frowned, seeing her confidence shrinking once more. I'm a level 21 ice mage. I can make up for what she lacks. Shiro wrote down as her surroundings started to drop in temperature. Even as a level 21 ice mage, you'll run out of MP eventually. The loser here will just draw in more enemies and cause you to suffer losses, Madison said, not relenting. And how would you know that? I know because she was in my party once, Madison said as she glared at Lyrica, causing her to shrink back further. Shiro paused as she realized that this was a prime opportunity. In one dungeon run, I can guarantee that she levels up to 12 at least. That should prove her worth. Shiro wrote down as Madison laughed. Level 12? EXP is calculated in terms of contribution in the party. With a hindrance like her, it would take forever to level her up once, Madison said. I can guarantee her a high contribution percentage easily. Shiro smiled. Big words for a little girl, Madison said, seeing what Shiro wrote. How about this then? I want you and 2 of your friends to fill in the gap in our team. Me and Lyrica will proceed with the dungeon. We'll have a single day inside the dungeon or an hour outside. If I don't get her level to at least level 12, I'll serve under you and help you level up to 20 instead. Shiro wrote down as both Lyrica and Madison felt their jaws drop. SS Shiro? Lyrica said, shocked at what Shiro was wagering. Having a level 21 assist me will make me level up much faster, Madison thought. What do I have to do if I lose the bet? She asked. Shiro smiled as she knew she had Madison hooked. 4 or 5 days in a week, you'll help me and Lyrica fill the numbers needed to enter a dungeon. 5 days. 3 at most, Madison said as Shiro nodded. Being able to enter the dungeon 3 days in a week was worth it. Even if I lose, 3 days isn't too bad, Madison thought. We'll sign an agreement later so neither of us can go back on our words. Shiro wrote down as she remembered the school allowing bets, but they must be under a contract. All right, I just hope you don't back out, Madison replied. Don't worry, I won't. We'll do the bet today since the dungeon exploration class will start soon. Shiro gestured for Lyrica to follow. Heh, just a kid in the end. I'm an ice system-focused mage. My magic can help lock down monsters, making it easier for my teammates to kill them. This is basically a one-sided bet, Shiro thought with a grin. That, and also the fact that there was a slight loophole in the agreement. She never stated how many times they'll be running the dungeon in a day. A day is 24 hours. She can spend 24 days in the dungeon if she wanted. As they left the food court, Lyrica couldn't help but be anxious. Shiro, you shouldn't have done that. EXP is calculated in contributions. I doubt I'll be able to get enough contributions to level up twice. Not to mention, you'll basically become her servant. Lyrica said, sounding anxious. Don't worry about it. It's only till level 20. Shiro grinned. How can I not worry? The average for level 20 is 16 to 18 years old. You'll have to help her for at least 2 years or more. I'll be making the dual-ended sword for you using my ice. My INT is pretty high, so it should help you in terms of contribution. You'll be killing the monsters while I'll be restraining them. This way, you should be able to get enough contribution. Shiro wrote down. But your freedom is at stake? Oh please. If I can level up to 21 even though I'm 13 years old, I'm bound to have a few tricks up my sleeve. Shiro said, shrugging her shoulders. Well, the truth is that I reached level 21 in just a few days. Shiro thought. Even so, that's your freedom at stake for 3 fill-ins. Lyrica frowned. It's just till level 20. If anything, I'm counting on you. Shiro grinned. Huh. You make reaching level 20 quickly sound so easy. Lyrica sighed. Don't worry about it too much. Just focus on increasing contributions later when we do the dungeon. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. You didn't cower out, Madison said as she had her arms crossed. Neither did you. Shiro wrote down as she walked towards her. Lyrica walked behind Shiro as she tried to muster up the courage to face everyone with her head held high. However, her nerves got the better of her as she started to shrink herself a little again. HAA. This girl has a long way to go. Shiro thought with a weary smile. So I'm the observer for this bet. Madison Wilcroft and her 2 friends will agree to fill up Shiro and Lyrica Wallenstein's party for 3 days every week. In return, should Shiro and Lyrica Wallenstein fail their side of the bet, Shiro will help Madison Wilcroft until she's reached level 20. Is that correct? The teacher said as Shiro nodded. Since I have received the confirmation, please sign the contract as you won't be able to go back onto your word until both parties have agreed. The teacher said as both Shiro and Madison signed the contract. The bet shall start the moment you enter the dungeon. The teacher called out after authenticating the contract. Shiro added the 3 people in front of her to the party. Shiro LVL 21, Ice Mage, Party Leader. Lyrica LVL 10, Elven Swordswoman. Madison LVL 14, Swordswoman. July LVL 13, Mage. Carol LVL 13, Swordswoman. Seeing that everyone is in a party, Shiro nodded and entered the dungeon. Serpent's Cavern 1F. Serpent's Cavern is a level 12 dungeon, meaning the boss should be around level 15 give or take. Shiro thought as she pulled out the sword handle the teacher gave her before. *CRRR. Ice froze over both ends of the handle as Shiro threw the sword over to Lyrica. We'll stay here and wait. Hopefully, you don't waste too much of our time and come back. Madison sneered as Shiro only shrugged. Come on, Lyrica. Shiro wrote as Lyrica nodded. Leaving Madison, July, and Carol behind, Shiro and Lyrica dashed into the caverns. The caverns were oddly lit up yet still dark as they couldn't see too far ahead of them. Shiro and Lyrica dashed through the caverns without stopping as per agreed on. Shiro's speed was much higher than Lyrica's, so she slowed down just to make sure they were together. As we agreed before, I'll lock down the serpents and you decapitate them, okay? Quick and simple. Shiro showed Lyrica the note as she nodded. Shiro turned her focus in front of her as 2 serpents were being picked up on the mini-map. Shiro quickly made 2 ice spears as she threw them towards the serpents. Missing the serpents' bodies, the spears created an arc that locked them in place. Cave Serpent LVL 10. Cave Serpent LVL 8. Without needing to be reminded, Lyrica already knew what to do. She slid on the ground slightly as she twirled the blade in a spinning motion. Jumping up, she did a flip whilst the blade itself decapitated the 2 serpents. Contribution: Lyrica 65%. Shiro 35%. Madison 0%. July 0%. Carol 0%. Collect, Shiro said. However, to Lyrica, Shiro just opened her mouth and said nothing. The serpents' bodies faded as Shiro quickly brought out her notepad. Next. Lyrica nodded as they charged towards the next lot of serpents. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Wah. They've already killed some monsters? And that loser got 65% contribution as well. July called out as Madison turned her attention towards her friend. Madison, if they actually do this, I hope you remember what you promised us. Carol said as Madison nodded. I know. I'll pay you guys for every hour we have to fill for their team. No biggie, Madison said, but her heart was pounding due to nervousness. How is she getting so much contribution? Madison thought with a frown. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. It took a while, but Lyrica leveled up to LVL 11. SS Shiro. I leveled up. Lyrica cried out in happiness and hugged Shiro whilst ignoring the cold. Shiro smiled wearily seeing Lyrica's enthusiasm. I know. Come on, let's get as many levels as we can for you. My MP can still hold up for a while. Shiro replied, holding up the notepad. All right. Lyrica replied as Shiro refroze the sword to make sure it kept its sharpness. After clearing out a majority of the beasts that were in front of them, Lyrica didn't manage to level up again. Most of the mobs were below LVL 10, making the EXP gain lower. We'll just kill the Obelisk Guardian then. That should level you up to 12. Shiro wrote down as Lyrica was panting heavily due to how much she had been moving. Can we handle it? She said, taking a short break. We should be able to, though I'll have to let my MP regenerate to full. You should take this chance to recover some of your stamina as well. Hey Shiro, isn't this bad for me? Like, I'm leveling up quickly, but my experience would be limited, Lyrica said after a while. It's good that you know. However, this is just to get your level up to par with everyone else so they don't look down on you. Afterwards, we'll be able to challenge dungeons 3 days a week with the trio filling up the missing spots. Shiro replied. But 3 runs per week is still a little short. I wish I can get more experience. Lyrica replied with a sigh. When did I ever say we're going to do a single run a day? I said 3 days a week and never specified how many times they had to accompany us. For all we know, they could accompany us for 24 days inside the dungeon or 24 hours outside. A single day. Shiro showed Lyrica her note with a grin. Ha ha ha, Shiro, that's mean. Lyrica chuckled seeing the trap Shiro laid out for the trio. But wouldn't they retaliate? Lyrica asked. Nope. It's part of the contract after all. They can only blame themselves for not reading carefully. Not to mention, this Missy here is a level 21, while they haven't even classed up yet. Sometimes I wonder if you're really a 13-year-old Shiro. You seem so much more mature than I am, Lyrica said as Shiro shrugged. The physical body doesn't represent the mentality. One can be old yet have the heart of a child, or be young and have the mindset of an adult. Shiro wrote down as Lyrica nodded in agreement. Shiro is a smart, scheming, and is a powerful person. In a good way, of course. Lyrica grinned. And you are a hopeless person who needs guidance. Shiro thought with a smile but didn't say out loud. She had a feeling that Lyrica will become someone great as long as she got the help she needed. This whim of hers may prove to be more beneficial than she had expected.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.